An owl with a letter in its paws flew onto the terrace of the palace. Beautiful Miss looked at the bird with large emerald eyes. The girl extended her hand, and the owl sat on it. Miss opened the package, in which the following was written: "A wedding is the result of love. You should not marry by agreement, as was customary in ancient times. You are special, so I will give you a chance. Do you want to get into the jewelry box? You are an extraordinary being that shines brighter than precious stones. You can eat whatever you want and get whatever you want. Jewelry box. Here are collected personalities as bright as you. In it you can meet the very love you dreamed of. Do you want to get into the jewelry box?" There is a newspaper on the table with a photograph of a girl reading a letter. The headline says, "Opening of the 5th box." The girl who read it gets up angrily, hitting a cup of tea standing nearby. Tea spills on the newspaper, and the girl crumples it with trembling hands, saying that such a luxury as true love is available only to a select few. She turned around and looked at the half-naked man sleeping in the bed. Yesterday she married him. She had no choice. It was a marriage of convenience. A ruined family first sells what is easily sold. She was sold in the first place because she was the daughter of her ex-wife. The girl remembered her childhood. She and other girls are standing on the shore by the pond. One of the girls says that Luaria is like a clear pond and wonders if she knows about it. The girls smiled evilly, and the frightened Luaria asked again. And the girl continued, explaining that there was a pond in the forest. If you throw a stone at it, you can immediately see where it will touch the bottom. And she hit her in the chest, and Luaria flew into the water. The girls laughed, looking at Luaria drowning from fear. She cried and called for help from her sister, brother, and father. She thought that she should have guessed even then that her whole life would now go to the bottom. She recalled discussions about who should marry her for a good dowry. It was assumed that the Lisa family would not compromise on the girl. Luaria asked herself how much longer she would go down. Wedding day. The bride is asked if she pledges her eternal love to the groom. Luaria wondered if this was already the bottom. The wedding night. She remembered a phrase from a book she read as a child. The relationship between spouses should be such that there is no embarrassment. Appear naked in front of each other and be able to share your secrets. The husband handed a glass of wine to Luaria, who was sitting on the bed. She looked at him thoughtfully. Looking at her husband, she thought that they didn't even know each other well. She could not call external manifestations in the form of hugs marriage. The man drank wine and took off his shirt. Luaria asked the man if he could wait a little. She wanted to talk a little first. Communication between spouses is the most important thing. The man grinned, answering that she had misunderstood everything. She was not here to talk. The husband asked if Luaria knew how much he paid for it. He emphasized that she should be grateful for the fact that she was taken as a legal spouse and not made a concubine, and touched her shoulder. Morning. The maids are cleaning the room. The girl is sitting on the bed, sadly looking at the floor. Her husband smokes a cigar while looking out the window. He turns around and grumbles about how she annoys him with her displeased appearance. The man began to get dressed and move towards the exit, ordering the maid to do something with his wife's face tonight, emphasizing that he cannot tune in when a woman without makeup is in front of him. Luaria's eyes were completely lifeless. The servants discussed her condition, suggesting that the lady might hang herself, like the previous mistress. One of them said that she was young and beautiful, so she would last longer. And the owner liked it, because he didn't even touch it. The girl was put in order, and she sat in front of the mirror, looking at herself. She angrily clutched the hem of her dress, then stood up and went in search of books. As a child, when Luaria was unable to tolerate something, she immediately ran to the library. She read books and was transported to other worlds. This helped me forget about reality at least for a while. Count Lisa, whom she married, made a considerable fortune through trading. The basement rooms were filled with the Count's personal belongings. Luaria stood in front of the door, not daring to enter. She was hoping to find some rare books. For example, those that I dreamed of as a child. Inspired, Luaria began to open the door. Right in front of the entrance, there was a stuffed huge fish with its mouth open, and it screamed in fright. Having discovered that it was a stuffed animal, she began to look around. The entire room was filled with various stuffed animals and skeletons of animals. Even lizards and snakes were kept in jars. At the center of all this horror stood a huge closed tank of water in which the body of a mermaid floated. Luaria came closer. The girl wondered if these were the Count's personal belongings. At that moment she felt that this was the very bottom. and no one could get her out of this deep bottom. Tears appeared in her eyes, and Luaria felt very nauseous. In the evening, Luaria climbed onto the balcony railing. She thought that only special people get a chance like a fairy tale, and people like her don't deserve this right. The chosen ones always rise to the top, but she sinks lower and lower. She had never had a lucky chance in her life. Tears rolled down her face. Suddenly, the girl saw a falling feather. She raised her head and saw an owl hovering over her with a letter in its paws. Luaria extended her hand and it landed on her. She recognized the bird described in the newspaper. Unwrapping the package, she saw an invitation to a jewelry box. Luaria did not understand why she was invited. She was the daughter of a bankrupt family, and she also got married. The girl was sure of a mistake because she could not be elected. She suggested that it was a dream or someone's cruel joke, but Luaria didn't care because there was nowhere to go lower. The girl kissed the invitation to the inscription, "Yes." The invitation began to spread magic. Luaria watched what was happening in surprise. The color of her eyes darkened. Hair, outfit, nails, everything became the color of obsidian. The girl heard someone's voice. He asked her if there was someone who would dare to look into her bottomless eyes. The voice explained that the girl was dark obsidian. He greeted her and invited her to participate in the banquet. The owl noticed how the door behind them began to open. The count entered the room, notifying his wife of his return, but he only saw the open balcony door and the dark shoe left there. The count exclaimed, asking the servants what they were doing while his wife ran away. He ordered them to find her. The man screamed so loudly that it could be heard outside. A magical seal transported the girl to a place unknown to her. On her way down, an elegantly dressed man in white shook her hand, thanking Dark Obsidian for answering the invitation. He greeted her in the jewelry box. The girl asked who he was. The man introduced himself as the organizer of the banquet, and his name is Moon Owl. The place where she ended up was the waiting room for the ball participants. They approached the wall where portraits of the participants were displayed. Luaria couldn't believe that she would go to the jewel box banquet. This couldn't happen because she didn't meet the conditions to participate. The Empire Box, it contains the most prominent representatives of the imperial youth from the nobility. At this ball, all participants hide their true names and choose their wedding partners. Instead of names, they receive the name of the gemstone, and they take on the appearance corresponding to this stone. No one knows the real appearance, name, age, and status. This is necessary to find true love and a life partner. Throughout the ball, the gems communicate with each other indoors. Those who find a common language reveal their identities at the end of the event. If there is no change in heart, they arrange a magnificent wedding in the capital of the empire. The whole process is recorded using a magic crystal, and all the inhabitants of the empire watch what is happening with interest. The crown prince thus met his future wife at the very first ball. The era of arranged marriage has passed. Now the time has come for love marriage. The romantic relationships and personal lives of the highest aristocrats delighted the inhabitants of the empire, forcing them to endlessly discuss this topic. The interest of the aristocrats themselves grew. The empire provided great benefits to those who married as a result of the ball. If the participants failed to create a couple, they were still popular among the people, demonstrating noble behavior. Typically, eligibility was limited to 8 gems, who were chosen from among the highest aristocracy. The competition for a place in the box was fierce. Luaria was absolutely sure that they couldn't invite her to such an event. There was some kind of mistake here. Moon Owl called the girl, calling her Luaria Lisa. She turned around in surprise, realizing that if he called her by her husband's last name, then everything was known about her. He said she came from a bankrupt family and was a married woman. According to the rules, it cannot be included in the number of precious stones. The man came very close to Luaria and seriously asked if she knew why she was chosen to participate in this banquet. Frightened, the girl backed away and fell onto a chair, answering in a trembling voice that she didn't know. Owl extended his hand, and the girl closed her eyes. He touched the back of the chair. Activating the magic seal, he moved away, and a screen appeared in front of them, showing a girl from the newspaper. She talks about her lucky chance to marry for love. The man says it's Mariana Fioricheris. In the 4th box, her stone was the most popular, pink diamond. She was universally loved and married a wonderful man. Until 2 years ago, I lost my husband in a disaster. Then she announced her desire to participate in the 5th box in order to choose a husband for remarriage. That is, Marianne should have been sitting in this place. Lueria shuddered at these words. Owl continued, saying that she went missing last night. The girl exclaimed in horror. The man leaned towards her and motioned for her to sit quietly. He said neither the other participants nor the audience know about this yet, and they shouldn't know. That's why they need Lueria Lisa. The man was too close again, which made Lueria even more nervous. She asked what this meant. Owl replied, they need someone who will replace Mariana. Magic glowed in his palm, and an image of obsidian silhouette appeared. The man said that Lueria would play the role of Mariana, so that no one would guess about the disappearance. The girl asked in a trembling voice why she. Owl replied, when Lueria becomes a gem, her appearance will change, so it doesn't really matter. For Marianne, who participated in the fourth box, it was already planned to use a strong spell to hide her identity. The organizers of the ball have one and only condition. They wanted a girl who would never betray them and who would have a good reason to keep the secret. The man's hand sparkled, and Lueria appeared on his palm, standing on the edge of the balcony. And he added, that is, they need a desperate girl. Then the picture switched to her husband. He was shouting angrily. Lueria trembled with fear. Owl came close to her ear and said that he would help her end her marriage with this man, and she will be able to marry the one she chooses. If she wants to live alone, they can provide her with everything she needs. Owl looked the girl in the eyes. He stressed, only on the condition that she play the role of Marianne until the end of the ball. Owl asked if Lueria agreed Lisa for such a deal. After hesitating a little, she agreed. Owl smiled and knelt in front of her, saying that he would tell her what she would need to do. A little later, Lueria is moved to an island shrouded in the ocean. She finds herself in a large gazebo with chairs and many magic crystals. Taking her eyes off the crystals, she saw a handsome, stately man with gray hair heading towards her. He saw Lueria and smiled joyfully. From the other side, a dark-haired, equally attractive man in a mask was approaching, his arms folded on his chest. It was Owl. The girl remembered his words. On the first day the precious stones studied each other. No one should show their real identity. It is even allowed to lie in order to hide the truth about yourself. She must do everything possible and lie as much as possible so that no one will guess about her identity. Owl stood among the organizers of the ball, and looking at the girl, he put his finger to his lips. Lueria nodded slightly and turned to the man with gray hair. He said he was glad to meet the lady, and he knelt in front of her, kissing her hand. He said, perhaps it was all about the color of the stone, but it seemed that she had many secrets, and this makes her seem even more attractive. He looked into Obsidian's eyes and smiled. The man said his stone was platinum. As soon as Lueria wanted to introduce herself, the man stopped her, saying that there was no charm in revealing a secret. He will try to guess. Platinum thoughtfully examined the girl, offering options such as black sapphire, black spinel. He leaned towards her ear and asked if it was a diamond, like in the last box. Lueria hesitated, remembering Owl's instructions that she remembered that she is Mariana Fiore Ceres, who charmed all the men and was never refused. The girl thought that she shouldn't show her excitement. She asked herself what Marianne would do in such a situation. Obsidian replied that the man had guessed wrong, so she would give the others a chance. Platinum blushed. They heard another participant approaching. A tall man walked towards them, adjusting his glasses. He bowed, saying that he was glad to meet you. His stone is alexandrite. Platinum noted that alexandrite is the very stone that changes color. He suggested that the man had a dangerous character. Alexandrite directed his gaze to the girl and politely asked her to introduce herself. Platinum was indignant because the man with glasses ignored him. Lueria invited Alexandrite to guess the name of her stone. The man thought about it and suggested that a dark stone like the girl's could be a black diamond. The attempt to guess the girl's stone failed. Platinum said that now the chance to guess the name of the stone goes to the third man. A younger man with red hair was walking towards them. Platinum was curious who this young man was. Alexandrite recalled that the appearance of the participants changes, and in life the young man could look different. The man in red came closer, noticing that he was very surprised by the proportion of the ball participants of 3 men and 1 lady. Alexandrite explained that the other ladies had not yet arrived, and Platina mockingly called the young man a baby, suggesting that the young man was afraid of losing to his competitors. The young man was offended by the ridicule, and he became indignant and exclaimed that he was no kid. The young man began to hotly introduce himself to those present. After a moment, the man calmed down and coughed unnaturally twice. He admitted that his gemstone was garnet, and politely said that it was nice to meet you. Platinum put his arm around the young man's shoulder and invited him to guess the stone of the lady in a black dress, because he and Alexandrite had already made a mistake and lost their chance. Garnet looked at the girl with concentration and suggested that she could be the black diamond. The young man failed to guess the girl's stone, and he was very surprised by this and wanted to know the name of her stone. Platinum began to mock Garnet for his unsuccessful attempt. Luaria was disappointed that no one could guess her stone and sadly looked down. Alexandrite turned around and saw someone. He said that he saw other participants heading towards them, and there were two of them at once. It was two girls. One lady was a head taller than the other and had short hair and a white dress, while the other had long wavy hair and wore a full black and white dress. The tall girl covered her eyes with her palm to better see everything around her and saw the other participants and informed the other girl about it. The lady in a white dress confidently walked along the surface in which she saw the rest of the participants. The girl in the fluffy dress hesitated a little and decided to follow her. The participant in the fluffy dress hurried to catch up with the girl in the white dress and asked her to wait a little. She was in a hurry and accidentally stumbled, falling face forward. The girl walking in front heard another participant fall behind her and turned around to ask what happened and check her condition. The lady in the white dress suggested that the girl was probably not yet accustomed to her new body and extended her hand to help the other participant up. After the girl in the fluffy dress was able to get up, they both continued to follow the other participants, but now holding hands so as not to fall again. The girls approached the other participants and they began to greet them, each doing it in their own way. The lady in the white dress waved to everyone present and noted that the two of them were the last of those who were supposed to come. Garnet inquired about the well-being of the girl with long hair. In the hall in which all the participants had gathered, a large blue bird appeared, which could talk and immediately attracted attention. Garnet was very surprised by the appearance of this creature and suggested that it was a hologram in the form of an owl. The bird greeted the participants in the fifth box and introduced itself. It was the host of this event named Moon Owl. Platinum ridiculed the young man and suggested that he had not watched the broadcast. The owl asked all the participants to take their places, and the young people sat down in a row. The blue owl began to introduce the details of being at the ball. This special place was specially created for these young people. Communication with the outside world was impossible. Data security magic was cast over this area to prevent sensitive personal information of the participants from leaking out. Participants had to choose a partner for whom they had romantic feelings. The stones that choose each other will go on a date outside of this island. During the date, the magic of data protection lost its power, and the participants were free to ask each other questions. The information that the participants learned on the date was supposed to remain between them. Moon invited everyone to look forward at two magic circles. He explained that these circles would take participants to another place, and 3 people could stand in one circle. The owl said that we had to get together in groups of 3 and stand in those circles. The first to stand up and walk into the circle was a tall girl in a white dress. She turned around sharply and looked at the other participants, and then joyfully exclaimed the offer to go with her. The girl with long purple hair was excited and decided to follow the lady in the white dress again, and hurried to stand in the circle next to her. After walking a few steps, she tripped again and fell face first onto the floor. Everyone was amazed at this incident. Garnet hastened to help the fallen girl. He helped her up and asked how she was feeling. The young man could not understand why she kept falling. Alexandrite politely invited Luaria to go with him and stand in the same circle. The girl was a little surprised, but agreed to go with the man. On the other hand, Platina approached Luaria and took her hand. He offered to accompany the girl and said that he wanted to get another chance to guess her stone. Dark Obsidian allowed Platina to escort her. The man was pleased that he was able to attract the girl's attention to his side. At this time, spectators were already watching every action of the ball participants through a magic crystal. One of the spectators was surprised at how the participants were divided. A girl sitting nearby suggested that the participants did not know anything yet, but the audience had already seen an interview with each of them. When asked about the ideal woman, Platinum replied that he likes provocative girls, such as Pink Diamond from the 4th box. Alexandrite answered in an interview that he likes honest and confident girls, like Miss Mariana. The participants were told that Pink Diamond was going to participate in the 5th box, and were asked if they could recognize her. Platinum replied that she was his ideal, and he would recognize her immediately. Alexandrite suggested that if he recognized Miss Marianne among the participants in the fifth box, he would immediately fall in love with her. One viewer voiced his interest in whether Platinum and Alexandrite actually believed that Obsidian was the pink diamond. Another viewer noted that among all three, Lady Obsidian created the impression of a provocative girl. The man sitting opposite agreed and said that he also remembered Lady Marianne while looking at Dark Obsidian. Moonal stood next to the audience and silently watched their discussion and guesses, and only he understood that another girl was participating instead of Marianne. The girl assumed that it had not yet been announced which of the stones was the pink diamond and really wanted to find out. The three participants found themselves in a large house that looked like a palace. Platinum suggested that if they were told to move here in threes, then they could continue to walk together. The man smiled welcomingly at the girl in a dark dress and invited all three of them to go inspect the house. While studying the house, Obsidian noticed that the bedrooms were divided into men's and women's. Seeing the common dining room, Alexandrite said that today they would have dinner here. There was a beautiful garden next to the house. Participants suggested that the place looked quite quiet and cozy and was very suitable for private dates. Obsidian invited the men to explore the entire island. She believed that from the garden it was possible to get into the forest and out to the sea. Platinum noticed that the island was not that big. Alexandrite added that it would not be easy to be here for several months in a row. In response to Alexandrite's words, Platina emphasized that they would be able to get closer on such a small island. The man turned around and noticed how the girl wanted to say something. The girl looked at Platinum and openly admitted that her stone was dark obsidian, which greatly surprised the man. Platinum was puzzled by the girl's confession because he believed that obsidian was considered more glass than stone. Alexandrite said that he had heard that the name of the stone was determined by magic, depending on the qualities of the participant, and suggested that the girl was similar to obsidian. Lueria thought that she might have been given this nickname because she did not belong to the high class of the aristocracy. Alexandrite told the girl that obsidian was the sharpest among fossils. In his homeland, men compared him to the heart of a man in love, broken from unhappy love. The girl thought that Alexandrite still considered her Mariana. She suggested that the men should not rush to conclusions about the meaning of her stone and think again. Obsidian made it clear that they had gathered here to find love. Platinum confirmed her words and said that his stone was pure platinum and it was the purest metal. The man leaned closer to the girl and admitted that his love was as pure as the purity of platinum, and soon Obsidian herself would understand this. One of the spectators noticed that there was something between the participants Platinum and Obsidian, and they were surprised whether the first love line had already appeared. Some viewers discussed that Platinum was interested in Obsidian from the very beginning because he considered her to be Marianne. Everyone was curious. What if Obsidian turned out to be not Marianne? A spectator in a pink suit suggested watching and then drawing conclusions whether the pink diamond was interested in the Platinum. Alexandrite paid attention to the girl's legs and saw that she was wearing high-heeled shoes. He politely noted that her shoes were not suitable for walking. Lueria smiled back and said that it was no big deal and he shouldn't worry about it. The man extended his palm to the girl and asked permission to take her hand. With this, he intended to help Lueria move around the island. Platinum mockingly reproached Alexandrite for the fact that the girl's legs would not feel any better if he took her hand. The man, without hesitation, immediately takes Obsidian in his arms. He compliments her, saying that she is as light as a feather. Alexandrite reprimands Platina. He thinks the man's action was rude, and he should have first asked the lady's permission before picking her up. Platinum told the girl that he considered Alexandrite a bore and he was already getting bored, but he would have to spend several months with him. Mariana Fiore probably would not have felt uncomfortable in such a situation, and most likely even the opposite. Obsidian intriguingly replied to Platina that she thought it was interesting when there was diversity among men. The girl's words made Platina laugh, and all this time Alexandrite watched the conversations of the young people. Platinum invited Lady Obsidian to make her guess that she would be the main character of the fifth box. Viewers were excited that Platinum began to take decisive steps. They noticed that Alexandrite was also interested in this girl, but Platinum took away his chance for rapprochement. Watching the participants, the audience realized that Obsidian was already between the two men, and some had a feeling that she would be the main character of the fifth box. All three participants gathered in a separate women's room to discuss what happened. The girl in the white dress asked Obsidian her opinion about walking around the island. The girl in the white dress was very interested in the details of Lueria's walk with the two gentlemen. Obsidian replied that she thought both men were very nice people. Then the participant with short hair asked Lueria if the girl was interested in any of the men. Obsidian sat in a chair on the seashore and gave an interview. She had to answer which of the stones interested her most. Lueria was confused and did not know what to answer. She thought about what Marianne would answer. At this time, Moon Owl was watching the girl. While thinking about the answer, the girl heard someone's voice in her head and was very surprised. The voice said she could speak honestly. Moon Owl used magic to mentally speak to the girl. He told her that it was also difficult to play Mariana's feelings and that Lueria could respond as her heart told her. Obsidian carefully considered the box's organizer's words and decided to give a truthful answer. The girl admitted that she didn't like any of the participants. Lueria thought that because of the pretense, she was too worried that she could not see the men properly. Obsidian suggested that she should have gotten to know the members better. Moon Owl was surprised that none of the participants liked the girl, but he understood and accepted her position. The audience considered the girl's answer very honest, because not everyone could say that. Despite Platinum's efforts, he still could not please Obsidian, and if the man finds out about this, he will be upset. Among the spectators, there were those who believed that this was a good chance for Alexandrite and Garnet. The public wanted to know what happened to Garnet, who went with the other ladies. In the men's room, a young man complained that a girl in a fluffy dress was constantly falling. She couldn't find where to go and couldn't even open the door. Garnet was very indignant at how someone could be such a clumsy person. The young man suggested that the girl had been locked up for a long time and then came out. Platinum listened to disgruntled comments about the girl in the fluffy dress and assumed that she had attracted Garnet's attention. The young man exclaimed in response that it was impossible to ignore such behavior of the girl, and that if he just turned away, she would have rolled down the stairs. Alexandrite said that he had not heard the girls introduce themselves and asked Garnet the names of the girls' stones. The young man replied that the tall girl's stone was pearl and the one who constantly fell was amethyst. Platinum asked Garnet which of the girls he liked best. Garnet was a little embarrassed by this question and suggested that more time should pass in order to decide. Platinum confidently said that he immediately knew within 3 seconds that it was his woman or not. The man believed that it was clear at first glance whether the girl could hold him. During the interview, Platinum was asked who interested him the most. He replied that it was Obsidian. The man admitted that he just felt that she was the one. Previously, Platinum considered the pink diamond the ideal of female beauty. He was asked whether he considered Obsidian to be a pink diamond. Platinum thought for a moment and did not give a clear answer. He stated that if the girl really turns out to be pink diamond, then he is ready to marry her right now. Alexandrite, when asked who interested him most, replied that he had not yet made his choice. During the interview, Garnet scratched the back of his head and also could not give a clear answer as to which of the participants interested him. Amethyst was very embarrassed during the interview and, stammering, said that in general she doesn't even know who she liked yet. Spectators noticed that the participants behaved very carefully. Pearl admitted that Platinum's appearance was to her taste, but if you think about it, on the other hand, it was a changed appearance, and therefore it was difficult to decide. Viewers noticed that none of the participants knew each other on the first day, and many of them had not even spoken to each other yet. The audience speculated that perhaps the participants' thoughts would change when they all gathered together for dinner. Viewers were curious to know if Platinum's thoughts would change. Evening came, and Moon Owl, in the form of a bird, gathered all the participants together and announced that on the first day of the box they had to cook their own dinner. The owl showed the participants a large pot and said that in front of them was the most favorite dish of the inhabitants of the empire, Luruk soup. Moon Owl said that everyone had to choose one ingredient and add it to the soup in order to complete the preparation of the dish. Garnet took a vegetable in both hands and tried to choose between them. Platinum said that it was necessary to peel and cut the ingredient and advised him to choose something that the young man could make himself. Pearl hinted to Alexandrite that whoever successfully completed this task would gain popularity among the inhabitants of the empire. The man replied that it was quite profitable to gain the interest of the residents. Amethyst looked at how the other members were choosing food and was very excited. She didn't know which ingredient to choose. Garnet saw Amethyst pick up a carrot and walked up to her. He was worried about the girl and warned her about the danger of getting hurt, and then asked if she would cope with the task. The young man took the carrot from the girl to help cut it. Garnet explained to the girl that the carrots were hard and round, and if your finger slipped, you could cut yourself. Pearl reminded Platina about how in the last box, one of the participants was peeling potatoes and cut himself. The man said that he remembered this scene and laughed. The girl noticed that at that moment the princess, who lived in greenhouse conditions, saw blood and was very scared. Platinum confirmed that royalty does not cook personally. Pearl continued to tell Platina that she had first learned about the need to cut sprouts from potatoes, and at that time, he turned around and saw something interesting. Of all the products that were offered as ingredients for the soup, Obsidian chose fish for herself. All the other participants were very surprised by this and looked at the girl. Obsidian turned around sharply and saw how everyone was watching her and could not understand the reason for such attention to herself. Pearl explained to the girl that the reason the other members were following her was because Pink Diamond simply hated blood and knives. Marianne believed that she was not created for cooking at all. While preparing food, she injured several of her fingers and had to be bandaged. The girl admitted to one of the participants that she had never before thought that cooking was not an easy task. The man took her hands and invited the girl to learn how to cook. Pink Diamond said that it would be better to double the salary of the cooks instead of cooking herself. She didn't even want to see either the knives or the blood. Lueria realized that she had made a mistake in choosing fish for cooking. Now the rest of the participants will suspect that she is not Mariana Fiore. The girl remembered how, as a child in a bankrupt family, she was treated like a servant. She just had to learn how to do housework. Obsidian didn't know how to explain her actions to the other participants. She said she was just training. Alexandrite took the potato in his hand and said that by looking at how a person handles a knife, you can learn about his character. The man noticed that it seemed that the girl was a very neat and sophisticated person, and that he personally liked such people. He looked at Lueria and offered her his help. The girl reciprocated and said that she would be grateful for help with cooking. Platinum clenched his fists and looked enviously as Alexandrite and Obsidian began preparing food together. When dinner was ready, everyone sat down at a large table in the dining room. Platinum began to try the soup and noticed that the dish turned out much better than he thought. Pearl laughed and asked Platinum if he was really worried about it. The man told how, in the first box, the participants dined on inedible food on the first evening. Garnet was surprised by this, and Platinum told how they put too much oil in the first box, so the soup burned and turned black, but the meat, on the contrary, remained raw. Alexandrite added that he remembers how Chrysolite then said that burnt soup would suit him and ate the entire pan. When it turned out that Chrysolite was the crown prince, the whole empire was on its ears. The young man was surprised at how Platina and Alexandrite remembered the first box, because it took place 20 years ago, and Pearl noticed that the men were not too young to remember such a thing. Alexandrite began to make excuses and said that the first box was often shown in repeats after its release. Platinum grinned and winked at Lady Pearl. He said the man only got better with age. Pearl said that it was forbidden to reveal personal information, and it was normal to draw such conclusions during the conversation. Alexandrite suggested checking how the ban on disclosing personal information worked and asked Garnet how old he was when the first box was broadcast. Garnet tried to answer, and at the same moment a mask appeared on his face, which covered his mouth and made it impossible to speak. Other participants saw what happened to the young man and were very surprised by it. Garnet tried to say something, but nothing came out. A blue owl appeared in the cafeteria and announced that the participants could not divulge personal information, and if they tried to do so, protection magic would be activated. Moon Owl said that in the case of 3 activations of protection magic, this stone receives a warning and loses 1 right to choose a stone for a date. The owl advised the participants to be careful not to lose the precious right to choose the stone. The magic dissipated, and the mask disappeared from Garnet's face. Now the participants realized that guesses could be resolved during the conversation, but talking about it in person was forbidden. The young man said that he could now be forgiven for letting it slip 2 more times. Platinum mockingly advised him to be careful with this and called Garnet a baby. Garnet was indignant and stated that he was not the baby he was thought to be, and then said that he would not say anything more. He blamed Alexandrite for asking the question. Alexandrite answered him that he had to lie, since it was impossible to answer. Platina thought about the man's words and concluded that it was permissible to pretend to be someone else. Obsidian thought that Platina might now suspect that she was not Marianne, but was pretending to be her because of her cooking skills. Pearl said that pretense was also possible, because if the identity is revealed, then it will no longer be pure love, but a deliberate attempt to get closer because of the person's status. She added that in this case, pretense was even necessary, and Platina agreed with the girl and said that this was the charm of the box. The man picked up a glass of wine and said that the more mystery, the more you want to know a person, and this made it even more interesting, and asked Obsidian to confirm his words. The girl looked back at Platinum intriguingly and suggested that it looked like she was interested in him. Platinum confirmed the girl's guesses and added that she interested him so much that he could soon go crazy from it. The audience was stunned by the man's words and considered them almost a declaration of love. They again suggested that Obsidian could be Marianne, but she was too good at cooking for Marianne. The public compared Pearl and Marianne and assumed that they had external similarities. Viewers noticed how Pearl said that one of the participants might be faking it. One of the spectators admitted that if she were Mariana, she would have started learning to cook as soon as she found out that she would participate in the 5th box. Otherwise, it would have been opened on the first day. Spectators discussed that it was easy to guess the girl's personality by looking at how she cooked, and this ruled out true love. Those present wondered whether Platina still believed that Obsidian was Mariana. However, it was clear that he had a clear interest in her. In the women's room, all the participants gathered for a discussion. Jemchug admitted that for the first time, she ate something that she had prepared herself, and she even found it interesting. The girl said that thanks to Obsidian, they were able to make a delicious dinner. Pearl praised Obsidian and called her very talented. Luaria smiled and replied that it was good that there were products there that she could train on. Pearl noticed that it turns out that Obsidian trained specifically. Amethyst said with disappointment that she also needed to practice beforehand. She admitted that it was her first time cooking, and she was very nervous. The girl was completely upset because she caused inconvenience to others during cooking. Pearl reassured her that Amethyst did a good job, and it turned out very tasty. In the men's room, Platina pestered the young man with leading questions about the countries with what climate his homeland was. Garnet was indignant and said that he would not answer this. Alexandrite took a cup of tea in his hand and asked those present about their impressions of the fact that all the participants had gathered to talk today. The man admitted that during the conversation, his opinion about some of the participants changed. Garnet was of the same opinion, and Platinum called men fickle. Alexandrite assumed that Platinum did not feel the change. Platinum sat more comfortably on the sofa and threw his head up, answering that he didn't know. In fact, the man had something to say, but he hid his feelings. However, if he was interested in something, he would not calm down until he received an answer. The blue owl appeared to each of the participants and announced that it was time to express their sympathy for the one they liked. All participants were given cards on which they had to write the names of those for whom you felt sympathy. After this, if one of those who have already written says this name, then the magic circle will connect to that person's room. Participants had to put cards with names in the middle of the magic circle, and then his chosen one would see it. Viewers were interested to know whether all participants in the box had made their choice and put forward their assumptions about it. They wanted to understand whether someone would receive several cards or vice versa. Perhaps there would be someone who would not receive any, and whether the opinion changed after dinner or remained the same. Obsidian was excited and went to the magic circle drawn on the floor in her room in order to send her card to the participant she liked. After interacting with the circle, the magic began to work, and the room was filled with a bright glow, which slightly blinded the girl. Garnet received only one card, which called him a kind person and expressed gratitude for his help. Platinum also received only one card. It said that it was fun to talk to him today. Alexandrite learned from his only card that the person who liked him would like to talk to him more. Obsidian received 3 cards at once. The first one said that the girl looked great with a knife in her hand. In the second, they confessed to her that she had many secrets, and that made her even more charming. From the third card, she learned that she was not what she seemed at the first meeting. The audience was amazed that Obsidian received all 3 cards, because this had never happened before when all 3 participants chose one girl. Garnet explained his choice by saying that he simply liked the way she handled the knife. At first, she seemed cold-blooded to him, but something distinguished her from the others. Alexandrite said that his first impression was perfect, and during communication, it seemed to him that he and Miss Obsidian were surprisingly well-suited to each other. Platinum confidently chose Obsidian again. He explained that now he couldn't look at other girls, and usually, if he was passionate about something, he couldn't pay attention to anything else. Amethyst chose Garnet because he treated her well and assumed that he was a good person. Pearl gave her vote to Platinum. She could not explain the reason for her attraction to him, but said that in addition to his appearance, there was an attractive atmosphere around him. Obsidian said she chose Alexandrite. The girl admitted that she didn't quite understand it yet, but it seemed to her that he was a good person. She didn't know if it was possible to say that. Moon Owl, wearing a white outfit and a mask, recorded the interviews of each participant. After the recording of the interview with Obsidian stopped, the man decided to take off his mask. The magic dissipated, and Moon Owl appeared before the girl in a dark outfit. He thanked Lueria Lisa and said that thanks to her, the first day of shooting went without any problems. The girl lowered her head guiltily and admitted that when they were cooking, she seemed to have made several mistakes. Moon Owl calmed the girl down and said that if Marianne had participated in the 5th box as planned, then she would have been asked to behave in a similar way. Each box deliberately revealed the identity of one of the stones to attract new participants. This was the so-called bait. During the first casket, the participation of the Crown Prince was announced. The man then tried to behave in such a way that no one would guess who he really was. Therefore, before filming began, the Crown Prince specially trained to behave and speak differently. Marianne would also have to first practice in order not to give herself away, and only then begin to participate. All the mistakes that Lueria made could be regarded as acting, so that Mariana's identity would not be revealed. The girl humbly lowered her head and felt relieved. She now understood that small mistakes in her behavior were considered normal. Obsidian suggested that it was undesirable to constantly make mistakes. Moon Owl agreed with this and said that then the audience would begin to doubt the presence of the real Marianne on the box. The man said that he would make sure that there were fewer mistakes. He invited the girl to watch the recordings together and discuss them. Lueria and Moon Owl sat down next to each other in front of a large magic crystal and began to watch a replay of today's recording from the very beginning. The inhabitants of the Empire discussed the fact that Obsidian and Alexandrite were now together. The man was not verbose, but very strong. If Platina finds out about this, she will be very upset. The audience sympathized with the fact that Amethyst and Pearl did not receive a single vote, although everything could change, because this was just the beginning. The audience watched the events in the box and the level of sympathy of the participants for each other on large crystals. There were a lot of people who wanted to watch, and they all wanted to know what would happen next. On the first day of the box, the prince and his wife joined the audience specifically for this purpose. The prince was also very interested in what would happen tomorrow. One of the commentators suggested that the prince's wife finally recommend to viewers what to expect from the next episode. The woman suggested that everyone was wondering how Platinum would react. Some viewers couldn't wait for the next episode. They wanted Platinum and Obsidian to be together. On the second day, the girl came to the seashore. A magic crystal flew nearby from her and recorded all her movements. Obsidian heard someone approach her. She turned around and saw Platinum. The girl did not expect to see him here and was a little surprised by his appearance. The man was glad that he found the girl in this place, and looking at Obsidian, he noticed that she woke up quite early today. The girl smiled back at Platina and said that the sea was just very beautiful at that time. Platinum came closer and stood next to the girl. He asked her if the sea reminded her of her homeland. Obsidian remembered how Moon Owl told her that Marianne was from the 8th kingdom of Sirius. This was Lueria's home kingdom, and therefore it would not be difficult to answer the questions. Sirius was a trading kingdom that conducted its main activities through sea routes. It is a place where knowledge and culture were exchanged. The inhabitants of the kingdom quickly got used to the changes and were quite open, like Lueria and Mariana. This is probably why Obsidian was chosen to play the role of Marianne. Lueria understood that if she mentioned the sea from the kingdom of Sirius, she would look like Mariana. She answered Platina that she was not sure that the sea reminded her of her native land. The girl thought that Marianne would try to hide her origins, and therefore told the man that she just liked to admire the sunrise. Platinum noticed that the girl was also diligent, and her charm knew no bounds. He also suggested that Obsidian liked to watch the sunrise and walk on the beach. In an instant, Platina took the girl in his arms and asked her if she liked being carried by a man. Lueria wondered if it would be strange if she refused him. Obsidian wanted to know how Marianne would respond now. Moon Owl mentioned that Marianne was known for her dissolute character and was rumored to have had several lovers after her wedding. The free culture of the 6th kingdom of Kailia, where her husband was from, made Marianne even more dissolute. She believed that it was impossible to talk about love if there was no physical contact. Lueria thought it would be better to simply refuse Platina. She playfully told the man that it was just like yesterday and she wasn't attracted to boring things. Platinum smiled and replied that he seemed to have made a mistake by making Lady Obsidian bored. The man carefully sat the girl down on a large boulder nearby and told Obsidian that he would show her something new today. Platinum leaned as close to Obsidian as possible. Then he touched her face with his hand and kissed the girl on the lips. Luaria, at the moment of the kiss, remembered how she had previously been tense alone with her husband in the bedroom, and he offered her a little drink. Obsidian stopped kissing Platinum, and he noticed that the girl was distracted and assumed that she was uncomfortable. The girl understood that she could not be as tense as she was that day with her husband. She had to imitate Marianne, and she had to think like her. Obsidian became embarrassed and admitted to Platina that she had not chosen him yesterday. And if after that the man had a misunderstanding, then she asked for forgiveness for that. Platinum again leaned close to the girl and said that he was acting this way now precisely because Lady Obsidian did not choose him. The man admitted that he was specifically trying to lure the girl so that next time she would write his name on the card. The audience was delighted with such a confession from the man and were inspired by the fact that Platina had drawn up a whole plan. The girl said that Platinum was a pretty strong competitor and would not give up so easily. The man added that Alexandrite should not have relaxed, and they decided to find out what he was doing now. At this time, Alexandrite was having breakfast with the other participants. He noted that they didn't have to prepare breakfast themselves, and Pearl said that it was unusual to have breakfast without servants. Garnet took an apple from the table and began to eat it. The young man said that now they can eat whatever they want. Amethyst was a little surprised and also decided to take an apple for herself. Alexandrite began to advise Garnet not to eat while standing, but the young man was stubborn and wanted to eat the way it was convenient for him. While they were arguing, Pearl turned around and saw something. Obsidian and Platinum entered the dining room to join the other participants. They walked barefoot and held their shoes in their hands. The first met a couple of pearls and assumed that they were on a morning walk. Platinum and Obsidian replied that they went to admire the sunrise. Pearl said that she would also like to take a walk along the seashore, and Platina suggested that everyone go for a walk together after breakfast. Alexandrite at this time looked at Obsidian's wet feet. Alexandrite apologized for disturbing him and asked Obsidian to sit down for a moment. The girl was very surprised by the man's request, but did not refuse him. Obsidian sat down on a chair, and Alexandrite took out a handkerchief and began to wipe the girl's feet. He said he thought the girl was uncomfortable because of the water droplets. Platinum enviously said that his feet were also wet, but they ignored him. Alexandrite invited the girl to bring what she would like to have for breakfast. The girl replied that first she needed to look at what was prepared, and only then choose. The man agreed with this and offered to help the girl put on her shoes. At this time, Platinum put a small piece of pie on a plate and offered it to the girl to try and said that the pie smelled delicious. Obsidian saw that she was being offered food that Marianne liked. The girl didn't particularly like this dish, but apparently she'll have to eat it. Alexandrite pushed away the dish Platina offered with his hand and said that it was rude to give advice without even asking, because perhaps the girl did not like such food. Platinum replied that he thought differently than Alexandrite and asked Obsidian to support his words. The girl lowered her gaze and admitted that she loved buns, but today she didn't really want them. She thanked her for your concern and said that she would look and choose herself. The audience noticed that Alexandrite was well protected by Obsidian, but she was still unapproachable because even during the kiss, she behaved a little hesitantly, and it was more Platinum's initiative. During breakfast, a blue owl appeared to the participants and announced that a game had been prepared for them today, and the winner would receive a coupon for a date by the sea. Amethyst was so excited by this announcement that she dropped the apple she'd just been eating. Garnet was sitting next to her and managed to catch the falling fruit. Moon Owl asked all the participants to gather on the seashore after breakfast, and they did so, and the blue owl was already waiting for them there. The owl pointed to a small boat and announced that this game was for gentlemen, and the winner would choose 2 ladies for a romantic boat ride. Today's game was a water battle. It was necessary to throw opponents into the water, and the last one remaining would win it. The participants were offered swords without a blade, and Garnet noticed this and suggested that his rivals not give in to him. Alexandrite asked to change into clothes suitable for battle. The girls stayed on the sidelines to watch the game, and they were very curious to know which of the men would be the winner. The competitors put on their equipment and stood in the magic circle to begin the game. Platinum chose not to cover his upper body with clothing. The man told the other competitors to stop watching and start coming and fighting him. Garnet responded to Platinum's challenge that he would not refuse. He pulled out his sword and rushed to attack him. Platinum managed to protect himself with a shield and felt that Garnet's blow was quite powerful. He didn't expect the young man to be quite a strong opponent. The blue owl announced that during the game, the participants could use their own, not altered bodies, but their real skills and strength. Garnet suggested that the rivals get ready, because thanks to his deceptive appearance, he was going to throw them into the water. The participants watched what was happening with great interest. Obsidian and Amethyst watched the game with excitement, and Pearl noticed that the game was becoming more and more interesting. Platinum decided to attack Garnet, and with enough effort, swung and struck his opponent. The young man reflected Platina's prowess, and noticed that the man used a good stance, but assumed that Platina was physically a fairly light person. Garnet swung his sword and threw the man some distance away. Platinum was very close to not falling over the edge of the magic circle. The young man saw how Platina and Alexandrite looked at each other and asked how long they would look at each other and suggested that one of them should attack. Alexandrite thought that Garnet was superior to them in strength or that Platinum was too weak and decided to test it. The man quickly attacks Platinum, but he blocks the blow with his sword. Platinum notes that he looks like an easier opponent than Garnet. Platinum declares that he should not be underestimated and fights back his opponent. Alexandrite sees Platinum's reaction and realizes that he was very fast. Garnet reprimanded his rivals, saying that they had gathered on the other side of the magic circle so as not to disturb him. The young man decides to put an end to this and goes to attack both opponents at the same time. Alexandrite and Platinum think that Garnet was very large in life since he could withstand two at once. Garnet was so confident of his victory that he even asked the men which of them would be the first to knock into the water. The spectator was surprised by such a game and said that she could not even imagine such an outcome. The man sitting next to him noticed that Garnet turned out to be a strong opponent. It seemed to them that the ladies looked at Garnet differently now. Perhaps this game could change the direction of sympathy. Alexandrite suggested that Platina join forces against Garnet if Platina was unsure of whether he could defeat the youth if Alexandrite fell into the water. Realizing that Garnet's fighting skills were undoubtedly superior to both of them, Alexandrite suggests that Platina use herself as a stand. Platinum catches Alexandrite's intention, because if Garnet is used to a large body, then he hardly had to receive blows from above. The man pushes off from Alexandrite's leg and attacks in a jump. Garnet did not expect such a blow and staggered a little. Platinum noticed this and commanded Alexandrite to attack him. Alexandrite confirms his guesses that it was difficult for Garnet to maintain his balance when the enemy was taller than him and was rapidly attacking the young man. The pomegranate cannot withstand such pressure and is sent outside the magic circle straight into the water. Falling down, he does not reach the edge of the circle with his hand to grab hold. Garnet crawls ashore and complains that if he had used his real hand, he would have been able to reach the edge of the circle. Left alone, Platina notices that he and Alexandrite worked well together, and his opponent agrees with this. Platinum points his sword at Alexandrite and says that at this point their cooperation is over and quickly attacks him. Amethyst is worried about Garnet's condition and asks him if he was injured during the battle. The young man began to take off his t-shirt and replied that if his opponents had injured him, he would have had to starve from shame. Pearl noticed that Garnet was great during the competition. While Garnet was wrung out his t-shirt from the water, Pearl asked him who, in his opinion, of the remaining participants would win, judging by the fact that he fought with them. Garnet believed that Platinum was ahead in terms of speed, and Alexandrite was better in terms of muscle strength, but added that one of the opponents was breathing strangely. Obsidian heard his answer and wondered which of the participants Garnet was referring to. Platinum looked very tired and was breathing heavily. Alexandrite saw this and noticed that the man was not particularly hardy. After Platina had caught his breath a bit, he told Alexandrite not to worry, because he could handle it in just 5 minutes. Platinum rushed to attack Alexandrite, but the enemy was able to block the blow and push the man outside the magic circle. As a result of the competition, Garnet and Platinum dropped out of the magic circle and lost, and Alexandrite became the winner. The blue owl appeared again and announced that the winner could now choose 2 ladies and go on a date with them. Alexandrite made its choice in favor of Pearl and Obsidian. Pearl was pleasantly surprised and expressed her gratitude to the man for choosing her for a date. The audience noticed that Alexandrite's choice of Lady Obsidian was obvious, but nevertheless, the girl looked very pleased. The public assumed that Platina, despite his efforts, was probably very unpleasant now for various reasons. On the date, all 3 sat down in the boat and were ready for a walk. The girls sat on one side, and Alexandrite was opposite them and poured tea. Alexandrite filled the cup and said that it was quite romantic to drink tea and ride in a boat. Pearl said that thanks to the man, they can enjoy it too. Obsidian noticed that Alexandrite looked very dignified during the competition. Obsidian shyly drank some tea, and Pearl noticed that Obsidian seemed fascinated by the man. Alexandrite politely asked the girls to tell him how they imagined their ideal man. Gemchug told Alexandrite that among men she liked those who were smiling, handsome, and sweet. Obsidian thought she should have named Marianne's ideal. She replied that she liked those with whom she could feel something new every day. Alexandrite replied that what she described was completely unlike him. The girl got nervous and said that that's why he seemed somehow different to her, and not like the others. Pearl smiled and noticed that Obsidian was drawn to a man who was the complete opposite of her ideal man. Viewers noticed that Pearl was trying to connect Alexandrite and Obsidian with each other, and if she succeeded, she would be able to win platinum without much competition. The girl said that Alexandrite was a stone that changed color depending on the time of day, or the color changed depending on the reflection and refraction of light. Alexandrite explained that during the day, in sunlight, the stone was green, and in the evening it turned purple from the use of artificial lighting. Pearl suggested that if the stones were distributed according to the characteristics of a person, then perhaps the character of a man also changed depending on the time of day. The man did not know how to answer this question and invited the girls to come to him one evening. Obsidian asked him what the man usually does in the evenings. Alexandrite replied that he preferred to read books before going to bed and brought several with him. The girl suggested that he loved books. Alexandrite confirmed Obsidian's guess and asked the girls if they liked to read. Pearl said she didn't really like the books. Obsidian remembered that Marianne loved novels and replied that she liked love stories because they were so romantic. Alexandrite admitted that once he was even interested in ancient languages, and the girl was very interested in this. Obsidian remembered and told the man how she also liked them as a child, and she reread all the books related to this topic, but it was not so easy to get them in ancient languages. The man noticed that the girl was knowledgeable and suggested that she was also interested in ancient languages. Obsidian remembered that Marianne probably wasn't that interested and became excited. The girl remembered how Moonal told her that other participants could perceive such mistakes as a pretense. Obsidian admitted that reading books in an ancient language was like solving a code. Alexandrite did not expect to meet a lover of ancient languages here and was glad about it. Until now, Obsidian had not been as passionate about anything as she was now, while talking about her favorite pastime with a pleasant interlocutor. The audience assumed that Alexandrite and Obsidian were rapidly getting closer to each other, and Alexandrite's decision to choose Pearl for the threesome's date was correct. Pomegranate was resting in the garden on a tree. He was angry at the transformation magic for making his body like this, and now it was very disadvantageous for the young man. Suddenly, the man heard someone moving towards him and even tried to climb the tree, but failed. Garnet looked down and found that it was Amethyst. He asked the girl about the reason for such an act, but heard only a quiet groan. Amethyst tried to get up and was very upset that she couldn't climb the tree. Garnet called out to her again and asked about the girl's well-being. The young man came down from the tree and extended his hand to Miss to help her up. He said, "Since the girl falls all the time, then why did she climb the tree?" Amethyst took her hand, at least a little embarrassed in front of Garnet. She admitted that she saw how upset he was. The girl told Garnet that she noticed how he didn't like the transformation magic, and that's why he got angry. The young man made excuses and said that it wasn't that he didn't really like magic, but it was just a little inconvenient, and he didn't understand why he had been changed so much. Garnet confidently stated that the organizers of the box were afraid that all the participants would persecute him if he participated in his natural form. Amethyst said that she was glad that there was this transformation magic. Garnet looked at the girl in surprise, and she admitted that there was someone next to him even now. The girl became even more embarrassed and said that if he were even more popular, she would be very upset. The audience was thrilled that the very modest Amethyst mustered up the courage to tell Garnet how she felt. Amethyst was very embarrassed and could not continue the conversation any further and left. It was not clear to the audience whether Garnet understood her words, but it seemed that he was greatly embarrassed by it. Garnet sat in the room and couldn't understand why Amethyst would be upset if his popularity increased. He reasoned that the girl wanted him not to be popular at all. The young man jumped up from the sofa and exclaimed the assumption that Amethyst hated him, and therefore she did not like that he was popular. Platinum sat opposite and was perplexed by Garnet's reasoning. The man suggested that all the young man's energy went not into his brain, but into his muscles. Garnet stated that he couldn't understand why Amethyst would be upset if he became popular. Platinum calmed Garnet a little, telling him that the girl really didn't like him very much. The young man smiled and agreed with this. A blue owl appeared in the participants' room and announced that tonight they would have the opportunity to meet the truth outside the island. The owl also appeared to the other participants. She told everyone that those stones whose sympathies coincided would spend the whole day outside this island. Obsidian, like everyone else, learned that outside the island the security magic no longer worked, and they could freely communicate on any topic. You had to make your choice before dinner. Platinum was encouraged upon hearing this and intended to try and win back his girlfriend's attention. Alexandrite and the girls returned to the house. They were met by Platinum, sitting on the sofa with a mysterious look. He asked if the lady liked it. Everyone looked at him in surprise. The man stood up and announced his desire to chat a little before lunch. Platinum smiled and extended his hand, asking if Obsidian would agree to come with him. The girl agreed, putting her hand in his. He turned around and told Alexandrite and Pearl that they would see each other at lunch. Platinum led Obsidian towards the exit. Alexandrite and Pearl silently looked after them, when suddenly Garnet joined them, saying that he wanted to fight again when they all got together, but Platinum immediately ran away. Jemchug offered to make him a party. Garnet enthusiastically ran up to the girl, asking if she owned a sword. She replied that she did a little sports. Garnet offered to go to the arena, and Pearl asked Alexandrite if he would go. The man didn't mind, and they headed to the arena. Amethyst was watching them from the second floor. Pearl stood confidently on horseback with a sword, and Garnet emphasized her skills. The girl smiled, saying that he was also a worthy opponent. Alexandrite praised them, saying what excellent riders they were. Garnet noticed the ball, but they lacked a person to play with. Pearl suggested playing together against Garnet. Enraged, Garnet happily agreed. They decide that whoever scores 3 goals wins and start the game. At the entrance to the stables, Amethyst watches them. She glances at the horses. The audience begins to discuss her indecisiveness, highlighting how well Garnet and Pearl are suited to each other. They begin to wonder if there is a chance that they will become close. The girl says that it was clear that Pearl saw a courageous young man in Garnet. They believe that today there will be changes in the love line. Platinum and Obsidian are walking in the garden, and he says he discovered something interesting. The man asked if the lady knew that everything on this island was created with the help of magic. Obsidian replied that she had heard about it. It was done for the sake of broadcasting, but she did not know the details. Platinum began to tell the lady that there are 3 mandatory points in the magic of the Empire: mana, magic circle, and crystals. The magician uses his own mana to create a magic circle, but maintaining this circle requires constant replenishment, and for this purpose they use crystals that are made by magicians. These crystals are sources of mana instead of people. Therefore, by looking at the magic circle, you can immediately determine the level of magic in it. The older the circle, the more energy it requires, the higher the quality of the crystal. Like in this garden. The man approached the bush and ruffled its leaves, finding a circle with a crystal inside. Obsidian asked if there was magic in the garden. Platinum replied that this was not simple magic, but one that required a lot of energy. He offered to show it to the girl. The man touched the tree. A glow appeared, and many flowers similar to sakura flowers began to bloom on the tree. Obsidian watched this beauty in surprise. She asked how he did it. Platinum replied that magic is used here to maintain the desired shape of the trees in the garden. After all, according to the rules, strangers, for example, gardeners, cannot enter here. He put a small amount of mana into the tree so that it would bloom right away. The man picked up one of the delicate flowers and handed it to Obsidian, asking if she liked it. The girl smiled. Taking the flower, she said that it was very beautiful. Platinum noticed that it was not as beautiful as her smile. He said that if the lady wishes, he can make other trees. Suddenly, his body felt unbearable pain. The man began to cough. Obsidian became worried. He started to sweat, and his breathing became heavy. The girl rushed to him, asking if he was okay. Platinum screamed so that she would not touch him, shying away from her hands, and they both froze in bewilderment. The man apologized. He did it unconsciously. Obsidian asked if he was okay. Platinum replied that he only almost broke up because of the pollen. He behaved disgracefully with the lady. The girl thought he was sick. The man's breathing was uneven, and his complexion was pale, perhaps because he had fallen into the water. Obsidian suggested resting on a bench. Platinum replied that he was fine. The girl thought that he did not want to show his illness, or he's bothered by cameras everywhere. The lady said that she would like to sit down because her legs hurt. Platinum awkwardly agreed. Sitting down on the bench, an awkward silence fell between them. Platinum looked at the girl's hand lying on the bench and reached out to it. He gently took her hand, which surprised her greatly, and pulled it to his lips. After kissing the hand, the man asked the lady for forgiveness. Obsidian noticed that he had already apologized. Platinum held her hand and said that he wanted to apologize again. The girl thought there was something cute about him. He looked like a puppy. Platinum approached the lady and asked if she thought he looked like a puppy. The girl awkwardly looked away, answering in the negative and trying to come up with some reason. The man chuckled. He touched his face to her bare shoulder, saying that he will obey like a loyal and sweet puppy, so he asks to give him another chance. After all, she doesn't know everything about him yet. Obsidian hesitated, looking into his eyes. She did not know what to answer. Platinum promised the lady that she would not be bored with him. Alexandrite, Garnet, and Pearl were returning to the house after the game. Pearl screamed at Alec if he had been a little faster, they would have won. Alexandrite argued that she passed the ball too late. Garnet, boasting, said that he could cope with such a transfer. Pearl indignantly emphasized his words for Alec. The man apologized indifferently. They saw Amethyst and noticed leaves in her hair, assuming that she was wandering through the forest. The girl began to awkwardly shake off her hair, saying that she just fell. Garnet became nervous, asking her if she had fallen again. Pearl asked if she was okay and if she was hurt. Amethyst was embarrassed, saying that everything was fine. They were joined by Platinum and Obsidian. Platinum, noticing their clothes, asked if they had ridden horses. Alexandrite was delighted to see Obsidian. He replied that they were playing and invited them to sit at the dining table closer to him, which the servants were preparing. Platinum offered the lady another seat, providing her with a chair. Alexandrite was outraged by the man's behavior, because the servants could have done this. Platinum sarcastically noticed that this was said by the one who was on his knees in the morning, wiping Obsidian's feet. The girl had chosen a completely different seat, and the servant was in a hurry to provide the lady with a chair. Everyone sat around the table, and while the servants prepared the food, the stones communicated. They were discussing today's polo game, and Pearl invited Obsidian to play with them next time. Alexandrite asked if she knew how to ride a horse. The girl lowered her head awkwardly, saying that she was not a very good rider. She thought that Marianne probably knew how to ride a horse, but she had never learned it. Platinum was delighted, saying that he would teach her. She will definitely enjoy the ride. Luaria became nervous. She wondered if it would be strange if it turned out that she was worse than Mariana in this matter. Alexandrite, noticing the girl's reaction, said that if she is not interested in this, she should not force herself, because there are many other things to do. There is a piano in the estate. If the lady likes music, he will play for her. Pearl exclaimed enthusiastically how great it was, noting that it would be nice to have a dance party. After all, she really loves to dance. She laughed, asking if Garnet could handle it, since dancing is like a sport. Garnet was indignant, recalling that these are completely different things. Pearl noticed that it seemed that their genius was not confident in his abilities. Garnet blushed. He asked angrily, "You just need to spin around, holding hands." Pearl said that for every time he steps on her foot, he will have to fulfill her wish. Unless, of course, he's afraid. Garnet slammed his fist onto the table, causing Amethyst's glass to shake. He agreed to dance. Amethyst's wine splashed across her hands, and she blushed as she held it. Alexandrite said that grenades should not be hit on the table. Viewers noticed that Pearl and Garnet became friends. They are both quite cheerful in nature, so they suit each other. The viewer felt sorry for Amethyst, because she couldn't even get a word in. They thought she should be a little bolder. It's probably not easy for her. The audience was wondering how the meeting with the truth would go this evening, because in one day, the situation had changed a lot. Garnet began to communicate more with Pearls, and Obsidian is a little doubtful. In the morning, she was cold with Platina, and at lunch, she already sat between him and Alexandrite. Viewers assumed that her feelings had changed. Owl, through an owl translator, announced that the time had come to decide on the first couple who would go to a meeting with the truth. The ladies have already made their choice in favor of those they like. Each of the men must stand in a magic circle and say the name of the one with whom he wishes to meet. If two people's choices match, they will be able to meet outside the island. If the girl they like has chosen someone else, they will not be able to go to a meeting with the truth, even if they receive a card from another girl. During the meeting, the magic of secrecy is removed, which makes it possible to speak freely about one's personality, but the information received is prohibited from being passed on to other participants. The owl moved to the men's room with Garnet. Owl announced that he must make his choice. Garnet went down to the magic circle, and he decisively said that the stone with which he wants to go on a meeting with the truth is Pearl. The audience admired the changes that had taken place. They were curious if Pearl would choose Garnet. Pearl walked along the long steps, going down to meet Garnet. They waved happily to each other. Admiring the creation of the first couple, viewers actively discussed their relationship. At first, they showed no interest in each other. It was a very unexpected turn. Pearl headed to the center of the circle, inviting Garnet with her. Garnet took the suitcase and followed the girl. They were awaiting the organizers' further actions. An owl hovered over them, saying that by moving in space, they would be able to go beyond the island. A blue glow appeared around them, and in an instant the couple disappeared. Women's room. Obsidian noticed that there were no sounds of returning footsteps, which meant that Pearl's choice coincided. Amethyst sat in a chair, clutching the hem of her dress in her fists. Platinum and Alexandrite chose Obsidian. The spectators were burning with impatience. Obsidian stood up and walked towards the magic circle. She chose Platinum. The man greeted her joyfully and with great surprise. Giving the lady his hand, he knelt down and kissed her, saying that she would not regret her choice. The audience squealed with joy for the highly anticipated couple. They thought that the girl was influenced by that image of a cute puppy. He was so cute that he made Obsidian's feelings change. Hour ago. The owl hovered over Obsidian, announcing that Ladystones need to choose a partner with whom they want to go on a meeting with the truth. The girl looked thoughtfully at the sheet of paper, not daring to make a choice. Waving his feather, Owl appeared in front of Luaria. He asked who she would choose. She replied that she had thought for a long time that if she chose Alexandrite, she would be at peace with him. He has a calm character, and his interests are similar. When he is around, Luaria feels comfortable with him. Owl sighed. The girl asked if there were any problems. The man hesitated. Then he said that Alexandrite comes from the 5th kingdom of Huracan. Owl heard that he often visits the neighboring state of Kalia on trade matters. Surely he often saw Marianne, who married the king of this kingdom. Luaria became nervous. She asked if this meant that Mariana knew Alexandrite. Owl replied that he did not know how closely they knew each other. Perhaps they just saw each other while passing by. But if he had a chance to personally communicate with Mariana, then he could guess that Luaria is not who she says she is. The girl was very worried. Owl continued to say, because of the magic of protection, everyone on the island is telling lies and also pretending to be someone else. Therefore, Alexandrite might have thought that Marianne was also just pretending. But there is no magic at the meeting with the truth. They have to talk alone. Owl does not know whether Alexandrite had the opportunity to personally meet and talk with Mariana. As soon as the conversation turns to the past, he will no longer be able to help Luaria. The girl began to shake and asked what she should do then. Owl suggested choosing another man. He asked if Luaria liked anyone other than Alexandrite. So Platinum and Obsidian go into the magic circle. The man looks happily at the lady. The audience is heatedly discussing his reaction. He looked like he didn't expect Obsidian to choose him. Owl announced to Alexandrite that he would not be able to attend the meeting with the truth today. He should go back to his room. The man silently walked into the room. The audience and Owl discussed what had happened. In their opinion, Alexandrite looked drooping. Nobody thought that everything would turn out like this. Even for the audience, it was a shock. After all, during the walk, Obsidian was favorable to Alexandrite. Those left on the island, Alexandrite and Amethyst, are probably in turmoil. Pearl and Garnet moved to the desert, where there were not even oases. Obsidian and Platinum moved to the permafrost lands, where there was not a single living person. An owl appeared in front of them, saying that at balls and in high society, one can easily fall in love. But there they do not see the true appearance of a person. Spouses, even in a dangerous situation, do not change their relationship with each other. They need to learn to accept their chosen one, even in the most difficult conditions. The couples had to see if they could go all the way with the person they chose. The suitcase contains items that will help them. The owl wished the couples to try to join forces and stay alive until tomorrow morning. He winked at them, and the bird began to fly away. Pearl and Garnet looked indignantly at the flying owl. They couldn't believe that he had left, leaving them here alone. He also left behind a lot of cameras. Platinum was a little confused by this staying alive thing. Spectators had fun discussing the extreme conditions for testing couples. Such conditions were chosen so that the partners showed their true faces. After all, this is only possible if they find themselves in a dangerous situation. There are couples who quarrel and break up after traveling together, and there are those whose relationships become even stronger. Platinum was shivering from the cold and coughing a little. Obsidian asked if he was okay. The man replied that he was fine, and they should change their clothes first. He touched his ring, and in an instant they were already standing in warm clothes with fur cloaks. Platinum was pleased to note that now they will not die from the cold. Obsidian cheered up and offered to look at the survival items that were offered in the suitcase. It contained magic crystals and some boxes. On one of the boxes, there was the inscription, "Items for sleeping." Pearl suggested that a crystal should be inserted into the box. She inserted the crystal, and a bright pink light shone. Beds, an armchair, and a table with chairs appeared in front of them. Pearl and Garnet were glad that they would not have to spend the night on the ground. The couple began to examine the rest of the boxes. There were boxes with provisions and medicines, but they were very interested in optimizing the environment. Platinum inserted the crystal into such a box, and a magical capsule appeared around them. The man noticed that the air was getting warmer. This means they were sent here not to die from the cold. Obsidian suggested that they could spend a whole day in this capsule. Looking into the suitcase, she listed the boxes it contained. The instructions said that when switching to activation mode, the crystals are quickly consumed. Therefore, they should be activated after stopping. Platinum suggested finding a better place, since the landscape here was rather gloomy. They set off. The man was breathing heavily. Obsidian noticed his condition and offered to stop anywhere, because everything looked the same. Platinum took the girl by the hand, looking at her with a pitiful look. He said that they arrived here together, and he would not want to stop anyhow. He wanted to spend time with a beautiful landscape. He pointed into the distance, suggesting that it would be great to admire the night sky from a hill visible nearby. Obsidian agreed, thinking that Platina was from a noble family, so she was looking for a romantic place. After some time, they reached a suitable place. The man noticed that the snow in this place is so white that the lady stands out even more against its background. They smiled sweetly at each other. Opening the suitcase, Platina said they would be able to see the northern lights if this place is near the northern sea. Obsidian was delighted with the information she received. Platinum put the crystal in his school, saying that he will admire the stars with Obsidian, so he is not sure that he will be able to sleep at all today. His cheeks turned red. The audience watched his reaction excitedly, deciding that Platinum would find even a snowstorm hot next to Obsidian. Meanwhile, Pearl and Garnet also used the environmental optimization box and enjoyed the oasis that appeared. Garnet tried to catch the fish with a spear, offering to fry it. The viewer noticed that they were both simple in character, and it was clear that they were having fun. Later, Garnet cooked fish over a fire by piercing it with a stick. Pearl admired her taste and how well Garnet handled everything. The man replied that he often did this during training. Pearl became interested in what kind of training we were talking about. Garnet said that this is a training in self-control. In his country, even members of the royal family must undergo it. At the age of 14, everyone is required to spend a week in the desert. He stopped abruptly and asked in fear if it was possible to talk about this. Pearl assumed that it was possible. After all, there was no magic of protection here. The girl exclaimed that she was the princess of the 7th kingdom of Hetus, and her name was Lila von Hetus. Garnet didn't expect her to do this. After an awkward pause, he smiled, saying that everything was fine. Pearl invited Garnet to reveal her name. The man proudly introduced himself. His name is Lysander Arama von Salvador, Prince of the 2nd Kingdom of Salvador. Pearl was surprised when she asked whether his kingdom was located in the south. Then that explained why Garnet was so familiar with the desert. The man said, "This is the country of the sun, courage and martial arts." He asked if Pearl had been there. The girl answered, not even once, because it is very far from Ketis. Garnet agreed, asking him to describe Hetus. Pearl replied, "Those who are unable to cope with the sea wind will not survive there. If Garnet swims so poorly there, the waves will simply carry him away." The girl asked how old the prince was, assuming that they were the same age. Viewers noticed that Dad began to talk more often about personal topics. After all, they couldn't ask questions before. There were probably a lot of them. And judging by their names, they are both from royalty. The condition for participation in the box is to be a member of the royal family, or a relative of the royal family of one of the 8 states. If they use the names of their kingdoms in their name, then they are descendants of the royal family, that is, heirs to the throne. The couple told each other about their family. Garnet has 5 older brothers. Pearl is the only daughter, so she has a lot on her mind. Her father wants to give her the throne. In Hetis, as in Salvador, women can inherit the crown. That's why Pearl's father needs a son-in-law. She asked Garnet if there were cases in their kingdom when princes got married and left for other countries. The man got nervous and didn't know what to answer. Pearl asked even more decisively if Garnet suddenly said that he would leave. What would his parents do? Garnet panicked, saying that in order to find out, he should first ask them. The girl sighed, emphasizing that during filming, it was forbidden to contact the outside world. He should have asked in advance, and she called him a fool. Garnet was so surprised and alarmed that he simply agreed with Miss. The audience was upset about the fact that the Kingdom of Pearl needed a son-in-law who could come to his wife's country. Apparently, Pearl herself would like to get married and then take the throne. The Empire gives those who married thanks to the box the power to rule in their own kingdom. Having received this right, the spouses acquire power that is higher than even the governor appointed there. This makes sense if Pearl marries not the firstborn and heir, but the second son of the ruler or lower. If Garnet is the youngest among 6 sons, this is quite possible. Although the audience does not know this, because Garnet is the only one of all the king's sons who received the right to participate in the box. The spectators of the Kingdom of Salvador believed that if Prince Lysander married in the casket, then he would be able to regain his power to rule Salvador. Therefore, he cannot go to another country. Moreover, it is geographically difficult to even talk about unification. The audience began shouting at the screen, asking the prince to choose another girl. Obsidian and Platinum sat by the heater and drank hot tea. The man noticed how beautiful the night sky was. In his own country, he could not admire the stars. He asked if this sky was different from the sky of Sierras. Obsidian asked if Platina believed that Sierras was her homeland. The man replied that this was an assumption. Obsidian was nervous. Tonight she had to say that she was Marianne. Everything was as she rehearsed. As soon as the girl wanted to say something, Platinum approached her and kissed her on the lips. The girl opened her eyes in surprise. Her face turned red. The man put her on the floor. He approached her ear and said that she shouldn't say all this. That's not what he's interested in. He said the phrase from the 4th box that amused him most. How can you talk about love without knowing the harmony of bodies? He touched Obsidian's face, saying that this phrase is true because the body does not lie. Platinum invited the ladies to test their feelings with the help of their bodies. A few hours before, Lueria hesitates awkwardly, trying to tell Owl about her concern. If she can't choose Alexandrite, only Platinum remains. And he, apparently, is quite experienced in communicating with girls. And he probably perceives Obsidian as Marianne, liberated and free. Lueria trembled, her face turning very red. She said she had very little experience in such matters, and she's not sure she can act like Marianne. When Platinum begins to actively take steps towards intimacy, Lueria clenched her fists, thinking that she would fall into a stupor again, and they would have to spend the whole day together and have nowhere to even escape. Owl looked at the girl silently. He then knelt in front of her, telling her not to worry about it. He, Moon-Owl, is the organizer of this entire event. It is he who decides where the participants will go and what will happen there. Platinum will not have the opportunity to seduce the lady. He will be very busy. At these words, Owl smiled mysteriously. The couple heard a growl. Platinum rose from the floor, freeing the girl. Behind the dome, a pack of wolves was approaching. Platinum and Obsidian were very scared. One of the wolves growled menacingly and rushed towards them, but the dome sparkled and the wolf flew back to the pack, whining pitifully. Platinum concluded that the capsule also plays a protective role. Wolves can't get inside. The animals turned around and walked away. Obsidian was worried that the bright light would attract the attention of other animals. Moreover, they are located in open areas. Platinum stressed they cannot roam the snowy ground at night. He suggested trying to hold out here, trusting the security device. Obsidian covered the heater with a sheet to dim the light. The couple sat on the floor, leaning on pillows. Terrifying sounds were coming from behind the dome. This really frightened the girl. Lueria believed that in such an environment, there would be no opportunity to do anything extraneous. She wondered if this meant that those wolves were sent by Moon-Owl. so that Platinum could not focus his thoughts only on her. The man noticed Obsidian's frightened look and handed her a blanket, draping it over her shoulders. She looked at him in surprise. Platinum suggested the lady sleep if she was tired, and he will check the magic crystal from time to time. Obsidian took the blanket from his hands and adjusted it herself, saying that she didn't think she could sleep. Platinum asked if Obsidian wanted to pick up where they left off. The girl looked at the man in fear. Platinum took her hand and placed it on his chest, saying that he would like to test his feelings physically. He asked if Obsidian could feel his heart beating. It was like this from the very first moment they met. Platinum's cheeks turned red. The girl hesitated, turning away. She said that he did not know either her or her real appearance. Platinum agreed, so he was even more curious. Holding her hand tightly to his chest, he said that he only thinks about her all day long. Obsidian asked what if she turns out to be completely different from what he thinks. The man replied that there are married couples who live together all their lives, and one day they realize that they do not know each other at all. They say that spouses should share their most intimate things with each other while being completely naked. Luaria remembered these words from the book that she thought about on her wedding night. Platinum laughed, saying that he didn't even remember where he saw these lines. If looking at a naked partner, he seems like a different person to him, and he is interested in knowing his thoughts. This can be different every day. Platinum smiled and asked if this was not so. Therefore, Obsidian should not talk about his identity now. He believed that, as soon as she spoke, he would begin to doubt. That he didn't like her, but her status. His feelings for Obsidian are simple, and Platinum asked to be allowed to prove it. The audience admired the nobility of Platinum. They thought he had impressed Obsidian. Viewers were curious to know if Obsidian really is Marianne, but apparently they won't see it today. Pearl and Garnet were getting ready for bed. Garnet rushed around the dome, panicking that he and Pearl would sleep together. The girl reminded that there are 2 beds here, and they will sleep separately. Garnet emphasized that 2 beds are in one room. It turns out that they will sleep together. He exclaimed how they could sleep in the same room before the wedding. Pearl looked at her partner in bewilderment. She asked what was wrong with this, because they would just sleep. Garnet embarrassedly hid his face in the pillow, shouting that he couldn't do this. They are alone in a dark room. He will hear her breathing. Pearl again asked what was wrong with this. Garnet again hid in the pillow, plaintively screaming that he couldn't do this. As a result, Pearl was left alone in the dome, and Garnet lay down in a sleeping bag behind him. The girl, perplexed, lay in bed, then nevertheless asked whether he really planned to sleep there. After all, the desert has quite cold nights. Garnet proudly replied that the warrior of Salvador is not afraid of the cold. Moreover, it is impossible to sleep in such a narrow bed. Moon Owl watched them closely through cameras. He passed his hand, and a magic circle appeared with a scorpion in the center. Garnet continued to boast that he slept inside a sandpit during training. This is much more comfortable than some small bed. He fell silent abruptly when he heard strange sounds. Raising his head, he saw many scorpions crawling along the bag towards him. Garnet screamed. A little later, he nevertheless lay down in the bed originally intended for him, shielding himself with pillows. Pearl could hardly contain her laughter. The girl could not stand it, and asked if the warriors were also afraid of scorpions. Garnet exclaimed in embarrassment that these were red-tailed scorpions. One bite would cause instant death. Wiping away tears from laughter, Pearl asked if he was comfortable on this narrow bed. Garnet emphasized that he was not tall to begin with. Pearl laughed and suggested that it would be interesting to live together with Garnet. They are approximately the same age, their personalities suit them, and their hobbies also coincide. Garnet blushed, agreeing with the girl. Pearl clarified that no one from Salvador had ever been married after the box. The man replied that this was true. His uncle participated in the box, but his last choice did not match. Pearl answered thoughtfully, "That's how it is," and became quiet. The audience found this moment strange. They thought that Pearl had an interest in Garnet, but apparently she thought that marrying him would not be easy. Nobody knows what will happen next. There are couples who overcome problems with their love. If no matter what they choose love, this is the power of the box. At this time on the island, Alexandrite and Amethyst are having dinner at a large table alone in silence. The man noticed that Amethyst hadn't touched her food. He asked if she liked the food. The girl blushed and replied that it was not so. She was just thinking. She wondered what the others were doing now. Alexandrite said, judging by previous issues of the box, They spend time alone in some unusual conditions. Sometimes these can be harsh conditions. Amethyst hoped they were okay. The man asked if she was worried about Garnet. The girl panicked. She asked how he guessed, because she didn't say anything about Garnet. Alexandrite replied that anyone could have guessed. Amethyst felt very awkward. She asked if Garnet himself knew about this. The man thought for a moment and said that he had made a mistake. By the word any, he did not mean Garnet. There is a high probability that he is not aware. It seemed to Alexandrite that he would figure it out only if he showed more active interest. Amethyst replied that she herself wanted this, but did not know how. Amethyst admitted that she trained to do things with Garnet that were interesting to him, but it wasn't so easy. Alexandrite was surprised, asking what exactly she was doing. They walked into the arena, and Amethyst sat on the horse and began to demonstrate her ability to control it. The horse jumped angrily, and the girl screamed in fear. Alexandrite took the reins and stroked the horse, trying to calm it down. He said that it was too dangerous to exercise on a horse alone. Miss could be seriously injured. Amethyst awkwardly replied that she fell once, but didn't hurt herself too much. The man emphasized that there is a chance to die. The girl blushed. She answered sadly that she just wanted to learn how to ride well. It seemed to her that this way she could get closer to Garnet. Alexandrite asked if she was hurt by the fact that Garnet chose someone else. Amethyst smiled and began to scratch the horse, saying that it was in pain, but she did not want to be idle. She felt that she should try to do something. Alexandrite smiled, praising the girl's courage. He said he would teach her to ride a horse, and when she gets the hang of it, she'll show her how to play polo. Amethyst was happy. Alexandrite added that first you need to change into comfortable clothes. Amethyst was surprised and asked what clothes. The man replied that he needed shoes like his. The girl was a little upset because her shoes were part of the image. She asked if she could change their shape. Alexandrite began to explain to Miss how to do this. Meanwhile, the audience became very interested in their pastime. They felt that it was less like romantic feelings and more like solidarity between those who were not chosen. They seemed to sympathize with each other. The audience was pleased to see Amethyst pluck up courage and try so hard. It seemed to them that Alec looked at her in a new way. Obsidian woke up to the sounds of coughing. She stood up, worried about Platinum, and asked if he was okay. The girl touched the man and found that he had a fever. She remembered the medicine box and headed for the suitcase. Platinum touched her sleeve and asked her not to leave. He said it would pass soon and she shouldn't worry, apologizing for waking the lady. He coughed again, and Obsidian offered to bring a heater. She believed that this would make him feel better. Platinum asked plaintively if Obsidian could stay with him. He believed that this would help him faster. Luaria wondered what Marianne would do in such a situation. She clenched her hand into a fist and then climbed into Platinum's bed. The man blushed very red. Placing her hand on it, she asked if he would sing a cradle to her sweet puppy. Platinum joyfully clung to the girl's chest and said that he was already healthy, calling Obsidian the mistress. Platinum's breathing became even, and the coughing stopped. Platinum thanked the lady for sticking around, promising to repay her kindness today if she needed anything. He gently took her hand and kissed it, telling her that Obsidian could contact him at any time. The girl's cheeks turned red. Spectators discussed Platinum's sincerity. It sounded less like flirting and more like gratitude, so it didn't sound so burdensome. His behavior was very different from how he behaved on the island. The audience assumed that Obsidian felt it too. Morning of the next day. Alexandrite and Amethyst stood in the hall, waiting for the couples to return. Magic circles lit up, and couples appeared in the hall. Everyone greeted each other. Alexandrite asked if they had a good time. Pearl happily replied that she was very much so, and Platinum blushed and said, "Amazing." He guessed that Obsidian was uncomfortable sleeping. The girl giggled, saying that it was a new experience. Alexandrite was very upset by what she heard. Pearl asked Obsidian where they ended up, saying that the couple ended up in the middle of the desert. Amethyst listened with interest. Without waiting for an answer, Pearl suggested talking in the room, since she wanted to quickly get into a room with a roof and walls. Amethyst was upset that they were leaving, because Garnet was still here. They asked him about the desert, and he screamed about how there were nasty red-tailed scorpions there. Alexandrite asked Platina where the pair ended up. As she left, Amethyst listened to the men's conversation. Garnet exclaimed in surprise, into a snowy field, and there were wolves. Women's room. Gemchug talks about his impressions. It was much more interesting for her to communicate without protective magic. She was able to satisfy her curiosity. Amethyst asked if she recognized Garnet's name, and Obsidian was interested in how she felt when she learned his identity. Were there any surprises? Has anything changed? Pearl answered seriously, a little. She thought about it, saying, to be more precise, it wasn't her feelings that changed. Now she had thoughts about how it would be in reality. She sighed, saying that everything is complicated. Then Pearl smiled and asked how Obsidian was doing. The girl awkwardly replied that things had become more complicated for her too. Amethyst was very interested in what thoughts Pearl was talking about, but she assumed that because of the magical protection, it was not worth asking. Pearl stood up, announcing that she had a lot on her mind, so she would go to sleep. Obsidian also wanted to rest. Pearl turned to Amethyst, saying that they would see each other at lunch, and waved to her as she left. Men's room. Garnet grumbled about how he didn't know they'd have to sleep in the same bedroom. Platinum asked sarcastically, he was so worried that he would have to sleep in the same room with a woman. Garnet blushed, he wanted to be indignant, but then turned away. And he said that he could not sleep because of the sounds of a stranger breathing nearby. Platinum smiled, asking if Garnet had been up all night. Garnet hesitated, answering that he hadn't been straight all night. He exclaimed in embarrassment, was Platina really fast asleep in such a place? Platinum blushed, turning away. He said that he also hardly slept, but because of something else. Obsidian lay on the bed, looking at the ceiling. Suddenly, a question was heard whether she was sleeping. Magic sparkled, and Owl appeared in the room. He said that the lady was so nervous yesterday that she probably didn't sleep well. The man suggested that Luria take a short nap. The girl replied that she could not, and awkwardly asked permission to ask one question. Owl agreed. Luria asked if Platina was sick with something. Noticing that in the garden and in the snowy field, he looked sick. Owl looked at the girl intently, saying, strange. She looked at him questioningly. The man said that he thought she would ask how much longer he needed to take part in this broadcast. Luria said that he had already talked about this. They would have to take part until they found Mariana. Owl agreed, and added that he also promised to do this as soon as possible. Owl admitted that he did not think that Luria would adapt so well here. The girl blushed, answering that it was all thanks to him and his tips. Owl emphasized that he was not talking about Obsidian's pretense. It seemed to him that communicating with Platina would be a burden for Luria, but she acted so cleverly. The man sat down on the bed. The girl became nervous, answering that she was just thinking about what Lady Marianne would have done. Owl clarified whether Luria had feelings for Platina. The girl hesitated. Owl said he thought it would be better if that was the case. After all, a date with Alexandrite may pose a threat, but if Obsidian had feelings for him, and she never chose him, other members would have doubts. Owl asked if Luria would like to develop a love story with Platina. The girl blushed heavily and hesitated. Owl asked if she liked Platinum. Luria answered, not that she didn't like it. The man recommended getting closer to him. Luria believed that then he would think that she liked him. And then there will be more of the same. The girl blushed even more. Owl looked at her questioningly. The lady added, for example, kisses. Owl asked if physical contact was unpleasant for her. In the box, physical contact is possible if both partners agree to it. He thought he had explained everything before the broadcast began, and Luria understood everything. The girl awkwardly replied that she understood and admitted that she had no such experience. Owl clarified whether Luria meant that she had few relationships before marriage. Luria panicked and replied that she had no experience of intimacy with a man. None at all. Owl was confused. He asked what this meant. Of course, she did not have the happiest married life, but she still had marital responsibilities. Luria exclaimed that she didn't even have that. Owl did not expect such a turn at all, and the girl silently bowed her head, hiding her face in shame. She remembered her wedding night. How disgustingly her husband responded to words about the development of relations. He ordered her to drink this expensive wine, and she drank the glass in one gulp. Count Lisa noticed that as soon as he said that it was expensive, she immediately attacked him. Her essence cannot be hidden, and he called Luria a pathetic girl of impoverished aristocrats. He threw Luria onto the bed and hung over her, saying that since she drank expensive wine, now it's time to pay for it. The girl felt dizzy. The Count began to kiss Luria's neck and go lower and lower. The smell of wine made the girl feel sick. She suddenly stood up and vomited right on her husband. Lueria said she doesn't remember well what happened next. She woke up in the middle of the night. Her husband was drunk and asleep. According to the maids, he was very angry, left to have fun with the girls, and returned in the morning. Owl got up out of his mind and staggered to the window. He looked very guilty. The man asked why Lueria was only talking about this now. The lady reminded him that he had not asked her about this. Owl said one of the reasons which he chose her is her marriage. It seemed to him that someone who had been married, like Marianne, would be better suited for this role than an unmarried one. After all, one of the search conditions was the fact of marriage. Owl asked if the lady had any romantic relationships before marriage. Lueria remained silent in embarrassment. The man asked how she managed to pretend to be Marianne so cleverly all this time. She replied that Owl taught her well. Moreover, since childhood, she loved watching programs about the box. She especially liked Miss Pink Diamond from the fourth box. Lueria always wanted to pretend to be her, secretly from others. It seemed to her that becoming the person of her dreams would not be difficult. But when a man touched Lueria, everything went white in her eyes. Owl asked if all men were pleasant to her, or only Platinum. Lueria replied that she had never kissed other men, so she herself did not know the answer. Owl closed his eyes dejectedly, pondering their plight. The man raised his finger and suggested doing this. It's time for breakfast. Everyone gathered at the table, except Obsidian. Platinum asked if Obsidian would have breakfast. Amethyst replied that she was tired and said that she wanted to sleep some more. Pearl cheered up the upset Platinum, saying that the owls carried breakfast for Obsidian to the room. She probably had a snack. Platinum looked at the pie lying on the table, and after breakfast, he packed one piece into a box. In the hall, he noticed Obsidian descending the steps and exclaimed joyfully. Platinum rushed to her, enthusiastically asking if she had breakfast. He showed the box, saying that dessert was cinnamon pie, and he was just about to take it to Obsidian. The man awkwardly added, "If she doesn't want to now, she can refuse." Alexandrite joined them, inquiring about Obsidian's well-being. The girl thanked her for your concern. Alexandrite bowed, asking if the lady wouldn't mind if he could borrow some of her time. Lueria hesitated, remembering Owl's words. She touched Platinum's hand holding the box, and she asked to forgive her, but she had plans. The men were very surprised by Obsidian's open and unusual behavior. The girl told Alexandrite that they would see each other at dinner. Alexandrite was shocked by such a direct refusal. The spectators were no less surprised, believing that Obsidian had completely cut off any thread of hope for Alexandrite. It seems that the encounter with the truth was effective. The spectators were amazed that only the first round had passed, and they had already decided on their feelings. Alexandrite lowered his head in frustration. Then he bowed, said goodbye, and walked away. Obsidian looked at Platinum happily, saying that she needed to talk to him. The man blushed deeply. He leaned towards the girl and picked her up. Platinum asked where to take his mistress. Obsidian suggested going to a quiet place. The couple went to the garden, where Platina put the girl on a horse. He said that he wanted to carry the girl in his arms, but she might get bored with it. There was a bench not far from them, and the man offered to sit on it and talk. Next to the bench was Moon Owl and his assistant, who were filming the entire process. Platinum extended his hand to the girl and offered to help her get off the horse. She didn't mind this and leaned towards him to get off. The man grabbed Obsidian with both hands and pulled him close. Platinum came as close as possible and kissed the girl. At the moment when Platinum was kissing the girl, she remembered what Moon Owl advised her to do the day before and decided to apply it. Obsidian forces the man away from her and tells him that she needs to confess something, and then asks him to put her down. Platinum is confused by this girl's act. He didn't expect Obsidian to be able to reject his kiss. The girl reminds the man that he gave her permission not to talk about who she was. However, she felt that she should tell him about it. The man learns from Obsidian that she has a person whom she still cannot forget. He is perplexed and wants to know who we are talking about. Moon Owl told the girl that Marianne was a cheerful and relaxed girl, but as a result of an accident, she lost her beloved husband. Obsidian learned that Marianne's behavior might have been slightly different from the fourth box, and she wondered how this might manifest itself. Marianne could not forget her late husband, so she experienced difficulties in intimacy with other men. It was similar to how Obsidian, when she was alone with other men, remembered her husband. Moon Owl asked the girl to make Platinum believe that she was still thinking about her lost husband. Obsidian told Platina that because of her magic, she could not go into details, but she needed time to forget her husband. The girl asked the man if he was ready to wait if his feelings for her were sincere. Platinum apologized to Obsidian for not even thinking about her feelings and putting his own desires first, and then hugged the girl. The man felt guilty and told the girl that he understood that he had neglected her feelings and sincerely admitted that his emotions had gotten the better of him. Platinum promised to be a good puppy and wait for Obsidian as long as necessary, even if it could take forever. The audience watched the couple's dialogue all this time and were stunned by the girl's confession. They began to speculate that Obsidian was really Marianne. The viewer suggested that the girl was talking about her husband when she confessed to Platina that she could not forget the person she had lost. Marianne and Viserys were the most beautiful couple of the 4th season of The Precious Box. After the death of the man, the entire people fell into despair. Because of this, Marianne's participation in the 5th season of The Precious Box left everyone a little dumbfounded. 2 years after the death of her beloved husband, she decided to get married again. Viewers were curious to know what Marianne was thinking now, and they suggested watching her pre-season interview again, and Moon Owl snapped his fingers to show it. Marianne was dressed in mourning attire, and when asked the reason why she decided to marry again, she replied that she had expected such a question. The girl said that in fact, she had not yet forgotten about Viserys, and would never forget him most likely, but in his homeland of Kalia, a woman could not inherit the throne. Therefore, she believed that she could become regent if she had a son, but Marianne did not have a child. She would have to hand over control of the empire to the governor in the situation that was now. Viserys certainly wouldn't want this to happen, and neither would the people of Kalia. Thanks to the precious box, the girl could get married again and rule the empire of Viserys together with her new husband. The girl said that her late husband would have done the same in her place. She was asked if she was sure that she could once again find her real husband in the 5th season of The Precious Box. Marianne replied that she did not know whether she would succeed or not. However, she believed that Viserys would help her with this. After these words, tears appeared in the girl's eyes. She smiled, even though tears were already rolling down her cheeks, and said that Viserys was watching over her and Kalia from heaven. Residents watched this interview and also cried. They initially did not understand why Marianne would remarry 2 years later, but now it was clear that it was all because of Viserys. The audience looked at Obsidian and Platinum, wondering if the girl was Pink Diamond. At first she seemed timid and sad to them, but she could change because of the loss of her husband. Looking at how the relationship between Platinum and Obsidian was developing, viewers believed that this couple had good chances, because he promised her to wait. The 4th day arrived, and some of the participants gathered around the small dining table to have tea and sweets and chat. Garnet was very enthusiastically telling the other participants about something, and Amethyst was closely watching him at that time. Platinum and Obsidian were not among the participants. Pearl suggested that they were secluded somewhere again. While the rest of the stones were in the house, Platinum and Obsidian were riding a horse together on the seashore. Pearl noted that she did not expect the couple to rush things so much, and admitted that Obsidian and Platinum became very close during the meeting of truth. Garnet was surprised that they were dating. Looking sadly at Alexandrita, Pearl thought that Obsidian looked much better next to him as a girl. Garnet asked Pearl if they had become close to each other too. The girl laughed and replied that she had fun then and was reminded of her childhood, and the young man agreed with this. Pearl wanted to know if Garnet was curious about the other's true identities. She believed that until now they knew little about each other, because on the island, due to forbidden magic, there was little to talk about. The girl said that during a meeting with the truth, one could even change one's attitude towards a person. Pearl admitted that this made her even more curious. Pearl intended to go for a walk and invited Alexandrite to go with her and ride a horse for a while. The man agreed to this proposal. Garnet and Amethyst simultaneously got up from the sofa and announced that they also wanted to go horseback riding with Pearl and Alexandrite. Pearl suggested having an argument and splitting up into two. She said that whoever can ride to the edge of the island first will win, and the loser will return back. Alexandrite asked the girl how they would distribute the teams. Pearl clenched her fist and then wrapped her other hand around it and said they were going to play rock, paper, scissors. Pearl had the chance to ride with Alexandrite on the same horse. The girl grabbed the man tightly and happily noticed that he was a good rider. Garnet and Amethyst raced behind them. Pearl shouted out to the young man a question about whether he could go as fast as she and Alexandrite. Garnet told Amethyst to hold on to him tighter. He said that with a weak grip and a slight acceleration, she could immediately fall. The young man helped her to grasp herself correctly and commanded the horse to rush even faster. Amethyst held onto Garnet tightly and pressed herself as close to him as possible. This was too fast for a girl to drive. She was shaking violently, and because of this, Amethyst began to cling even closer to Garnet and wrap her arms around him. Garnet was embarrassed by such a strong hug from the girl and was indignant. He accused Amethyst of touching him in the wrong places. The girl was also embarrassed and apologized for her action. Pearl and Alexandrite won the competition. Garnet and Amethyst had to give up their horse and walk back. Pearl advised Garnet to treat Amethyst properly. The girl invited Alexandrite to play horse racing again. The man replied that it was as simple as shelling pears, and then the girl galloped forward as quickly as possible. Pearl and Alexandrite galloped back, leaving Garnet and Amethyst behind. They had to walk back to the house together. Garnet was tense due to losing the competition. Amethyst guiltily admitted that they lost because of her, and expressed her understanding that Garnet was upset because of it. The young man angrily stated that he was not upset. He demanded to know if he was the type to blame someone else for losing. Garnet assumed that everyone thought he was a narrow-minded person. He was angry and demanded that Amethyst find someone else if she thought he was nasty. The young man began to shout at Amethyst and demand to explain the reason that she pestered him, if at the same time she hated him. He accused the girl of deliberately harassing him because of her hatred. Amethyst heard his angry accusations and began to cry because she didn't hate him at all. Garnet saw the girl crying and tried to find out the reason for this. She replied that she did not think he had that opinion of her. Amethyst admitted that it wasn't a matter of hatred at all, and she had no reason to hate Garnet because he was kind to her. Garnet continued to not understand what she meant. Amethyst said that from day one he was the first one to treat her kindly and also helped her cook and continued to take care of her. The young man said that it was all just because the girl was pestering him. Amethyst replied that she only wanted to be close to Garnet. Amethyst asked the young man for forgiveness for disturbing him and ran away to the other side of the bank. Garnet remained on his own and tried to comprehend what had just happened. Alexandrite was a little ahead of Pearl, but at one moment he noticed something and stopped. Alexandrite said that the girl can consider herself a winner. Pearl became interested in the reason for their stop, and she looked where the man did and saw Obsidian and Platinum walking together. The girl offered to approach them and chat. She didn't understand why Alexandrite just looked at them silently. The man said that the right moment had not yet come. Platinum helped Obsidian get off the horse, and at that moment, Alexandrite thought that the girl was a little afraid of the animal. Pearl suggested that the man fight off Obsidian in the same way as Platinum did. She set Alexandrite up to the fact that it is not necessary to play a fair game. While getting off his horse, Obsidian accidentally hurts the animal with the heel of his shoe. The horse rises up and throws the girl off of him. Obsidian falls to the ground, and everyone looks on in alarm. No one expected that this could happen during a walk. Platinum rushes to the girl and helps her up. He is concerned about her well-being and asks the girl if she was injured. The man notices that Obsidian is shaking all over and wants to know how badly she was hurt. He also asks her if the girl can get up. Alexandrite intercepts the excited horse, which jumped out from under the girl, and calms the animal. After this, the man approaches Obsidian and extends his hand to her in order to help. He asks the girl if she is able to get to her feet now. Obsidian stands up and tells those present that she is fine. Platinum holds the girl and says that when they return to the house, he will call the doctor. Platinum takes the girl in her arms and carries her away, but Alexandrite remains holding the horse and looks after them with envy. The girl's leg received minor abrasions, and Moon applied a healing magic circle and a magic crystal to her. The man told Obsidian that she should not strain her leg for a few days until she was fully recovered. Platinum asked the girl for forgiveness for what happened and blamed himself for it. The girl did not understand why he felt guilty and said that it was her mistake. Alexandrite reminded the girl that she had said that she didn't particularly like horse riding and suggested that she might not be disgusted by it at all. Obsidian said she wouldn't love her anymore. Platinum again took the girl in his arms and offered to escort Obsidian to her room. He says that it will not be easy for her to do this herself, and the girl thanks him. It seemed strange to Pearl that the girl fell from her horse, because Pink Diamond was riding quite confidently during the broadcast. A blue glow appeared in the Obsidian room, and Moon emerged from it. He reminded the girl that he told her to avoid horse riding. The girl admitted that Platinum put her in the saddle so suddenly that she could not refuse and asked Moon for forgiveness for this. Obsidian said that she was afraid that everyone would perceive the situation as very country or think that it was also a sham. The man asked the girl not to try to jump over her head, even if it could be passed off as Marianne's acting. Otherwise, the difference between them would be even more noticeable. Moon-al noticed that after their last conversation, she had noticeably reduced the number of touches, and this pleased him. He said that if there was a love line between Obsidian and Platinum developed further, then Platinum would have sensed something was wrong. Moon-al explained that Platinum would have seen that it was not a matter of shyness, but a lack of experience. The girl thought and agreed with his opinion. The man said that Obsidian would not be able to drag out a romantic relationship with Platinum for long, because he was quite an experienced person and liberated in intimate matters. Owl believed that Platinum would someday realize her peculiarity. He suggested 2 ways to solve this. The first way was to end their romantic relationship. The second option was to find a way to gain intimate experience. The girl got excited about this, and Moon-al said that the second method was more difficult and took a lot of time. The man suggested using the first method, when at that moment someone knocked on the door and asked to enter. The girl recognized Platinum's voice. Moon-al snapped his fingers and began to disappear using magic. He motioned for the girl to keep their conversation a secret. Obsidian allowed Platinum to enter, and he opened the door. The man said that he thought that it would not be very convenient for her to go downstairs, and so he brought her something to eat. The girl replied that he did not need to worry, because she could walk thanks to healing magic. Platinum was upset and assumed that Obsidian was kicking him out. Obsidian allowed the man to stay, and they sat down together at the small dining table across from each other. Platinum admitted that he had a lot of questions for Obsidian, and so he was thinking about how to bypass the protection magic to ask them. The girl thought that the man suspected something and wanted to ask about everything in detail because of her inability to stay in the saddle. The man hesitated and said that he was not sure that such a thing could be asked, but asked if he was doing something wrong. Obsidian did not understand what he meant, and Platina assumed that the girl was not entirely comfortable around him and that Obsidian did not tolerate him at all. He said that usually things change after serious incidents, and because of the restriction magic, it was difficult for her to explain the reason for this. The girl suggested that he believed that her dislike of horse riding had something to do with the death of Marianne's husband. Platinum asked the girl to tell him if he was doing something wrong. He said that he didn't want to make her feel bad, and thanked Obsidian for her understanding. Obsidian lowered her gaze and replied that she could not tell him everything and asked for forgiveness for that. The man leaned forward and took the girl's hand. Obsidian was perplexed by this, and Platinum was frightened and pulled back his hand. Platinum began to make excuses that these were not some regular tricks, and he just wanted it to not be so hard for her. The man recalled how Obsidian helped him at a meeting with the truth when he felt bad, and therefore also wanted to help. He admitted that he had no other intentions and again became like a puppy. Platinum urged the girl not to worry because he would obediently wait. The girl listened to Platinum's confessions and looked at him and could not understand how she should have ended the relationship with him. Moon-al's assistant asked him whether it was worth cutting out the scene with the fall of Obsidian. The organizer ordered to cut out this scene and make Garnet and Amethyst today's heroes. The employee asked when the second meeting with the truth was supposed to take place. He said that there should be changes in love lines now. The assistant said that at the moment, it seemed as if the relationship between Platinum and Obsidian had already been established. Moon-al smiled mysteriously in response and thought that it was time to bring a little chaos into the relationship of the participants. The 5th day arrived, and Obsidian was able to go down to the rest of the participants. The girl leaned on a cane with one hand, and Platinum supported her on the other hand. Gemchug inquired about the girl's well-being. Obsidian replied that she could already walk. She assumed it was due to the crystal's action. Alexandrite was glad to hear that the girl was already feeling better. Obsidian was pleased that everyone was concerned about her well-being. Amethyst guessed that falling from a horse was very painful. The girl replied that thanks to the healing magic, she was not in pain at all. Alexandrite explained to the girl that a top-level crystal would help her recover quickly, although it was not as strong as divine power. Pearl admitted that the man acquired this knowledge from books. Alexandrite replied that he had been to different countries and knew something from experience. A blue owl appeared in front of the participants and announced that it had prepared a game for them today. After the meal, she asked everyone to gather on the shore. A large balloon was waiting for them on the shore. Before the start of the game, the owl announced that in 3 days a second meeting with the truth would take place. Moon-al also said that at the next meeting with the truth, the couples who were at the first meeting will not be able to choose each other again. All participants were very excited about this announcement. Garnet surprisingly suggested that the second meeting should be with another person. Amethyst was also overwhelmed with feelings, because she did not participate in the first meeting with the truth. Jemchug suggested that the organizers wanted to give all participants a chance to get to know each other better. Obsidian remembered her conversation with Moonol the day before and assumed that the meeting with the other person was arranged specifically so that she could break off her love affair with Platinum. The blue owl pointed to the ball and said that today's game would be for the ladies, in which the two winners could choose one gentleman and have a romantic evening on top. Today's game was horse shooting. Participants were given a choice of 3 horses and guns. After the horse race, the girls had to shoot at a target. The participant who can hit the target faster than others will be the winner in this game. This game was supposed to be difficult for Amethyst. Pearl was good in the saddle, and Obsidian should also be good at riding if she really is Marianne. The audience was excited that Obsidian would be participating, as just yesterday she had injured her leg after falling off a horse. Amethyst was very determined, and the audience could notice this. If Obsidian was injured, then this could be a good chance for the girl. Until now, only Amethyst has not been able to develop a romantic line, and the public was worried that everything would change for the girl this time. When all the participants were ready, the owl announced the start of the game. The first to complete the shooting race was Obsidian. Platinum advised Obsidian not to stress too much because the game was not the most important thing. Alexandrite advised the girl to be careful with recoil while shooting because the horse could get scared. Viewers noticed that both men were very worried about Obsidian. Everyone understood that even for an experienced rider, it was dangerous to ride with a wounded leg. Obsidian galloped to the right place and fired a shot. She was able to finish it in 4 minutes and 32 seconds. Platinum was very happy with this girl's result and shouted to her that Obsidian thought he was doing well. The second participant in the race was Amethyst. Spectators noticed that she began to ride much better because it was not for nothing that Alexandrite taught her. Amethyst wanted to communicate closer with Garnet and therefore began to train, and today, during the game, she simply shone. The girl arrived at the shooting scene faster than Obsidian. She raised her gun and fired, but unfortunately missed. Amethyst tried again and again to hit the target, but she kept missing and was very worried about it. The audience was worried about the girl because she had not practiced shooting before. Garnet asked how many bullets Amethyst had. Platinum responded that her gun could fire about 6 shots. The girl tried every attempt and was never able to hit the target. The girl's result was counted as a loss in the game. Amethyst was very upset that she couldn't get in. The audience empathized with her and believed that she would still have a chance to prove herself. Alexandrite said that the girl began to stay in the saddle much better, and next time he offered to teach her how to shoot. The last participant in the competition was Pearl. The girl was able to gallop to the target and hit it with a gun in just 28 seconds. The girl was pleased with her result. Amethyst and Garnet watched in delight at how quickly she managed to pass this test. Pearl smiled and admitted that she was a little embarrassed because fulfilling the conditions of the game turned out to be too easy for her. The blue owl announced that now the last participant should come out, and all the participants were very surprised by this because Pearl, was the last. The magic circle brought another participant to them. The girl was sitting on a horse, and everyone was excited because another stone had appeared right now. The new member raced very quickly on horseback. The girl took a shooting pose without even stopping the animal, and fired a shot from a much greater distance than Pearl did. The men were amazed at how the girl coped with the task. Garnet admired that the new member wanted to hit from a long distance, and at such speed. All the stones were very surprised by what just happened, and especially the men, who had amazed faces at this. The new girl was wearing a bright orange dress, and her birthstone was amber. Yantar completed the task in 11 seconds and became the winner of this game. Now that the game was over, the winner could choose 2 men to go on a date with. Amber pointed to Platinum and Alexandrite, and they were very surprised by this. Viewers noticed that the girl chose the Obsidian men. Amethyst looked very pleased, presumably because Garnet wasn't chosen as a date. Viewers were discussing how the new girl quickly burst into the show, and it took their breath away. They noticed that the girl was very beautiful and knew how to make an impression. Amber and the 2 men went on a date in a hot air balloon, and all viewers were wondering how things would change now. The girl took a cup of tea in her hand and said affably that she was pleased to meet the men. Platinum and Alexandrite reciprocated her feelings, and Alexandrite admitted that the girl's abilities impressed him very much. The man noticed that the lady had excellent horse riding and shooting skills. Yantar said that she loved horseback riding. She saw some kind of freedom in this. Platinum admitted that if a girl could shoot well, she could be a good hunter. Amber smiled in response to this. Alexandrate inquired about the reason for her choice in favor of him and Platinum. Amber replied that she had a good feeling, and she liked to rely on intuition. Platinum noticed that in this, he and Yantar were very similar. The man asked the girl if she adheres to the 3-second rule. Amber was surprised that Platinum used this rule to choose a girl, and assumed that he had already chosen his betrothed. The man admitted that he felt attracted to his betrothed as soon as he saw and realized that it was her. The girl smiled and accepted his point of view. Viewers noticed that Platinum was straightforward as always, and drew the line so that Amber did not count on anything. Yantar asked Alexandrite about his favorite type of girls, and added that she would like to know more. The audience saw that Platinum did not show any interest in the new girl, however. On the other hand, he did not give her false hope, and assumed that the man was not interested in anyone except Obsidian. It seemed that Amber was not at all embarrassed by Platinum's passivity. On the contrary, the girl looked confident and relaxed. Alexandrite said that he appreciates sincerity and honesty in girls. At the same time, he had Marianne in mind, but the audience believed that he should have liked Amber. A man asked a girl about her ideal type. The girl said that she once had no idea about an ideal man and loved all men equally. Platinum at this time, without interest in the words, Amber was eating cookies. Then she explained that life goes on and people change, and therefore she would like to see a man next to her who would not leave her. This must be a reliable and, above all, healthy person. Amber smiled and said that it would be great if she and he had common interests. Alexandrite admitted that the girl would like to see a hunting enthusiast next to her because shooting and horse riding were just their hobbies. Amber lowered her gaze and admitted that she did not like hunting because she hated the sight of blood and death. The girl explained that life was too short and should be filled with happiness and laughter, and not anything like that. Alexandrite suggested that Amber spoke as if she was carrying a heavy burden on her soul. The girl replied that she was a happy person and asked for forgiveness for her depressing thoughts. Amber smiled and said that she was glad when there was dessert on the table, and there was good company at the table, and that was enough for her to be happy. Alexandrite expressed full agreement with the girl's words and offered to serve her dessert, and she thanked him in return. The girl tried a piece of pie and sighed longingly. Alexandrite asked the reason for what did not suit the girl. Amber replied that it would be much tastier if this pie were with cinnamon, and asked the men if they liked this spice. The men looked at the girl with great curiosity. She said that she really loved pies and cookies with cinnamon, and most of all bananas with this spice. Platinum, in addition to the listed dishes, named fried bananas with cinnamon. Amber became interested in this, and the man said that it was his favorite dish. Viewers were excited that Platinum named this particular dish. Since last season, Gold taught Pink Diamond how to cook fried bananas with cinnamon. Pink Diamond was not good with a knife and was afraid of cutting herself, but he supported her and brought her bananas, which were easy to cut. This was the first dish they cooked together. Viewers began to notice strange coincidences and increasingly suspected Marianne and Yantara. Her words about disgusting blood were very reminiscent of Pink Diamond. They heard Yantar say that she had changed her type, and now she likes reliable men. From this one could guess that it was because of her husband who left early. The audience knew that Viserys died after a hunting accident, and this explained why the girl did not like Alexandrite's words. From here, one could assume that Amber is Marianne. After the date, the men gathered in a room to discuss what had happened. Garnet inquired about how the meeting went, and clarified whether it was true that the girl's name was Yantar. There was an awkward silence between the participants for some time, but then Platina said that in the box you could pretend to be anyone, and this was not prohibited by the rules. The man was confused and assumed that the girl might have been acting and was deliberately imitating someone else's personality. The audience realized that Platina and Alexandrite had already realized that one of the girls was fake, but no one knew which one. The perplexed Garnet was confused and wanted to know what they meant. At that moment, Platinum stood up and left the room. This surprised Garnet even more, and he asked Alexandrite about the reason for the man's behavior. Viewers noticed that Platinum looked very confused, because Obsidian never revealed her identity at the first meeting with the truth. Platinum was left alone to think. The audience understood that until the second meeting with the truth, no one would know which of the girls was the real Marianne. The residents were told that only one of the stones would know the truth after the meeting. Everyone was very surprised, because many believed that Obsidian was Mariana. There was some debate among viewers that some thought Obsidian was weird from the very beginning because she walked around with a gloomy look. Others thought it was normal because her husband died. The audience believed that for Platina and Alexandrate, Marianne was the ideal woman, but now everything became very confusing, and everyone wanted to know what would happen now. Obsidian was sitting in a chair, and at that time she was broadcast throughout the Empire, and the residents could only guess which of the girls was the real Mariana. A tavern somewhere in the Empire. Men with glasses of beer are arguing heatedly about whether Obsidian was Marianne. One of them claimed that she was deliberately being awkward to hide her identity, whereas Amber seems to be waving a flag. "Look, I look like Marianne!" Another thought that the man was delusional, because it was clear that Obsidian was not playing. She was strange from the very beginning. The first man continued to insist on his own, claiming that this was acting. She doesn't want people to get close to her looking at the past. Marianne is the only participant who has already been on the show. He was skeptically asked why Amber would pretend to be Mariana. He replied that it was obvious that she was sent by the imperial family to mislead simpletons like them. A show isn't interesting without a good mystery and a surprise ending. Viewers discussed the previous day of broadcast, which caused serious controversy. They were interested in who Obsidian was. The participants sit at the dinner table, and Amber tells a funny story. She quotes someone, "The stuff may be fake, but it's a worthwhile thing." Garnet and Pearl almost burst out laughing. They admire Yantar's cheerfulness. Alexandrate, smiling, noticed how many funny stories the lady knew. Pearl said they haven't heard the stories she tells in the ladies' rooms yet. Garnet added that he would love to listen. The girl asked Yantar to repeat the story about the stupid magician. Amber was happy to tell the story again if they so desired, and she began the story. Viewers noticed how quickly the girl became the life of the party. One of the spectators remembered Lady Rose from the fourth box. She also had the talent of gathering people around her, as if the world were her stage. The audience was worried about Platinum. He was not funny at all. Interviews with participants. They are asked about their first impressions of Yantar. Platinum replies that he is confused. He has no other words to express how he feels. Garnet thought the girl was cheerful. Pearl liked it too. Amethyst embarrassedly noted that she was cool and everyone liked her. Obsidian praised her as a cheerful person. Alexandrate considered the lady joyful. She seemed interesting to him in many ways. The next question was what the participants thought who Amber was. Platinum replied that he did not know. Obsidian had no offers. She reminded Pearl of Lady Rose. Garnet replied that he could not know about this, suggesting that it would only become known after meeting the truth. Amethyst was very shy and didn't know what to answer. Alexandrate confidently said that she was Mariana. Then he corrected himself, considering that there was a possibility that the lady was Marianne. The audience found his answer interesting. The next question is whether the choice of participants will change if she turns out to be Marianne. Platinum nervously clenched his hands, folding them on his chest, and said nothing. It seemed to the audience that he was very confused. Alexandrate replied that he could not say yet. He would like to get to know the lady better. He doesn't know if it's real or just a sham, but she gives the impression of an open person, and he likes that. Viewers noticed that Alexandrate was showing interest in Yantar. She is confident and honest, which matches his ideal type. The audience thought that all the jewelry looked interesting. Each of them has its own charm. After dinner, Lady Amber turned to the men and said that she wanted to explore the island before going to bed. And I asked if anyone would like to give a tour. Garnet and Alexandrate agreed with one voice. They looked at each other awkwardly. Amber giggled and said it would be nice to have two guides at once. The girl looked at Platinum. The man said that Obsidian would not be able to go because her leg had not yet recovered. He asked him to forgive him for not keeping them company. Platinum wanted to keep an eye on Obsidian. Pearl put her hand on Amethyst's shoulder and waved, wanting the three of them to have fun. Warning Amber that the island is large and she should wear comfortable shoes, Garnet awkwardly asked if they would come with them. Pearl began to explain herself to Garnet. Platinum invited Obsidian to sit down in the living room and try dessert. The audience was surprised that Platinum rejected Amber. They believed that he loved a person, not the past. He likes Obsidian, not Marianne. The audience assumed that Obsidian also noticed this act. If Platina continues to be so loyal, she will surely open her heart to him. First of all, two men show interest in Yantar. Fully interested, Alexandrite and Garnet drew the line of rivalry. Perhaps they were interested in a new piece of jewelry. The appearance of amber was a vigorous shake-up for other stones. It seemed to the audience that this would somehow change their relationship, and they were very curious how the picture would change. Platinum and Obsidian were sitting at the table, and the man was stirring the tea without stopping. Obsidian was surprised and told the man that the sugar had been mixed for a long time. He smiled and apologized, asking permission to ask a question. Obsidian was nervous, but agreed. Platinum swirled the cup, asking why she chose him to encounter the truth. The girl hesitated, remembering the words of Moon Owl. Then she calmly took the cup in her hand and replied that it was a spontaneous decision. Platinum emphasized that the lady rejected him on the first day. He was interested in when everything changed. Obsidian thought for a moment, then smiled sweetly and answered, "In the garden." She thought Platinum might be cute. The lady casually put the cup back in place. Platinum smiled. Stretching out my hands to Obsidian, he gently took her hand, placing it on his face. He asked if he was cute now. For the sake of the lady, he will become even more sweet. The man asked Obsidian to let him know when she got tired of it. He can be anything for her. Obsidian blushed and looked away, wondering which one. Platinum chuckled, saying that he should surprise her. After all, it won't be interesting if she finds out in advance. He bowed his head, and the lady stroked him. Viewers assumed that they were an established couple. Platinum seemed very charming to them when he was next to Obsidian. Women's room. The girls were interested in the Yantar walk. She was delighted with the time spent, and especially enjoyed the company. Garnet told her about Pearl's good writing skills. Pearl clarified if he really said that. Yantar said that she also loved horses, and offered to ride with her on the shore. Pearl agreed. And Amber asked the other ladies, believing that it was more fun together. Obsidian replied that she would be in trouble for a while due to her injured ankle. Amethyst panicked, saying that she was unfortunately a bad rider. Amber asked how Obsidian got injured. The lady smiled, answering that she had just fallen off her horse. Yantar got scared, saying that falling from a horse is very dangerous. The girl grabbed Obsidian's hand and said she was glad the lady wasn't more seriously injured, and she emphasized that she was speaking sincerely. The lady thanked Amber and smiled at her. Amber asked Amethyst how long she had been learning to ride. The girl hesitated, answering uncertainly about 4 days. Amber was very surprised, praising Miss's remarkable abilities for such a short period of training. She thought Amethyst held up well in the saddle. It seemed to the audience that with the appearance of Yantar, the atmosphere had changed. The girls' rooms became more lively. They compared her behavior to the way Lady Rose set the atmosphere. Viewers did not rule out the possibility that Marianne is Obsidian. She looks more like a person who has experienced a loss. From this side, she looks more natural. Lueria sat in a chair by the window of her room, looking at the starry sky. Magic sparkled, and Moon Owl appeared in the room. The girl noticed that the man was late today. Owl replied that he was late at the organizational meeting. Looking at Lueria, he asked if her leg was okay. Obsidian looked at her leg and replied that everything was fine. The man said that when the magic stone loses its power, the bandage can be removed, but the lady should still be careful. Lueria wanted to say something, but suddenly hesitated. Owl said if she is interested in something, she can ask. The girl said if he remembers, she wanted to break off the love line with Platinum. That's what he's trying to do now, and Lueria asked if Amber appeared at such a time especially for this. Owl sharply refused, saying that this detail of Lueria Lisa doesn't need to know. He emphasized that a lady should have only enough knowledge to look natural in front of the camera. Lueria was upset by such a rude answer. Owl suggested we talk about today's broadcast. He produced a magic screen and they began to discuss. Men's room. Garnet admired Amber, laughing joyfully. Platinum drank tea without reacting to his story. He supposed they enjoyed the walk. Alexandrite leafed through the book, adding that Yantar had a talent for storytelling. She doesn't even tell ordinary stories in a boring way. Garnet promised to retell the last story to Pearl, assuming she would have appreciated it accurately. Alexandrite recalled that she refused to go with them. Garnet smilingly replied that it would be great for everyone to go together. He was determined to offer the two of them horse shooting next time, because it would be fun. Platinum looked sarcastically at Garnet and said, "It's great to have a friend with whom you can laugh." And he asked, or maybe it's better called interest. Garnet did not understand anything, and Platinum asked Alec to decipher it. The man asked if he had to choose. Who would Garnet, Pearl, or Obsidian choose? Garnet asked in surprise what chose meant. Platinum sighed, telling Alec that the decryption had failed. Alexandrite said that there is a limit after which he also feels embarrassed to speak directly.